one.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Right.
Start with presentations. Okay, so welcome to session E1, Ride-Hailing and Emerging Mobility. I will be your host today. I'm Giancarlos Parady from the University of Tokyo, and we have 4 presentations. So we have relatively a little bit of time, but I did ask you in my previous communications to have prepare 50 minutes per presentation and to have between 5 and 10 minutes for Q&A. So it is possible that we have a little bit more time afterwards, but I will appreciate if you can keep the times. And I will give you the opportunity to self-introduce yourself. So I'm just giving you the name of the affiliations, and then you can introduce yourself in the ways that you prefer. So our first presentation is by Joanna Reinhardt from the University of Melbourne on the impact of autonomous ride-hailing services for children's independent mobility. So Joanna, whenever you're ready.
Perfect, thank you. Let me try figure out the sharing tech here. Share. Can you guys see my presentation?
It's loading, yes. And a reminder to the audience, feel free to post your questions on the chat. I will try to ask them once the presentation is over, but also I also encourage all the other presenters to actively participate in the discussion. So John, I'm seeing, can you switch to the presentation mode? I'm seeing the presenter's tools.
Why is that?
If you go to display settings.
Sorry, I've got like...
No, if you press presentation mode and in the same screen.
Yeah, I know. I've got an old university laptop, which was slideshow from beginning. And then display settings and
then yes, if you swap there, it should be okay. Not yet. Can you? Yes, perfect. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Thanks everyone for bearing with me. I'm Johanna. I'm a PhD student at the University of Melbourne. Can you hear me well? Because my internet connection is a bit unstable.
Yes, we can hear you well.
All right. Great. And I am presenting today a literature review that was published in the beginning of the year on autonomous ride-hailing services for children's independent mobility. And my background is in, actually I'm a bit different to most of you guys probably. My background is in public policy and planning. And before I started my PhD here, I worked in the ride-hailing industry for about a decade in Germany. Let me see if that works. All right, so the reason why I decided to look at this topic is because I've started to observe that children were becoming a user group for autonomous ride-hailing services. And to give you a bit of background, most global ride-hailing platforms did not allow children under the age of 18 to travel unaccompanied. So when services started to introduce that, which the first one was Uber in 2023 with their service, which is called Uber for Teens, that really was a change and kind of signaled that there was something going on and that children might become a user group for these services in the future. So Uber in 2023 introduced Uber for Teens, which is a service where you can download, as a teenager from 13 onwards, you can download the Uber app and link into a family profile and then ride independently of your parents. And then in 2025, Grab followed suit. So Grab is the dominant platform in Southeast Asia. They've got a service now which is called Grab Teen or Grab Family Teen or something like that. In the end of 2025, Waymo introduced the first autonomous service for ride-hailing service for children, which is also for teenagers. It's currently being tested in Phoenix, so it's still in the testing mode. And Lyft this year announced the service for teenagers as well. So you can definitely see the network effects here and that there is something happening in the industry, which is still quite new. I have to say, though, that some smaller ride-hailing services did allow children, sometimes even up to like baby's age beforehand, but none of the global platforms allowed that beforehand. In my PhD, I'm looking at how these autonomous ride-hailing services may reshape the idea of children's independent mobility. So children's independent mobility is a concept which has become prominent since the 1990s, and it is defined as the freedom of children to travel and or play without adult supervision. And it's been linked to children's physical, social, and emotional well-being. And we've observed a continuous decline in many countries worldwide, but especially in the global north. And reasons for that are the perception of unsafe streetscapes, increased parental fears of accidents, and also stranger danger, but also societal challenges in childhood. So more time being spent inside, but also in like backyards and so on, instead of playing on the streets. And to the right, you can see a conceptualization of what children's independent mobility kind of entails in the literature. So it's the idea of agency, that children have agency over their mobility decisions. It's used to be really strongly tied to the idea of active mobility. So children walking, scooting, or riding, for example, to school. Because it used to be active and independent, it was also based around the idea of neighborhood. So you were walking to school to a close neighborhood in the neighborhood, and less to longer distances. And then the literature accounts for all the various interdependencies. So for example, you're obviously still dependent on your parents to get this parental permission, but also other things like having friends to walk with, and so on and so forth. And in my PhD, I'm looking at how these new services might change this concept and what that means for children's mobility. And then in the literature review that was published in the beginning of this year in Geography Compass, my supervisors and I looked at how the existing literature in transport and geography research had considered children as users of autonomous ride-hailing. And the reason why I always use the term autonomous ride-hailing is because the whole industry is moving towards driverless, but also ride-hailing specifically because I wanted to look at that specific user scenario. So it's like as a paid service. And in what way or to what extent the concept of children's independent mobility is considered in this body of literature. To quickly go over my review methodology. So we used a semi-systematic literature review, which includes a systematic search process and then a qualitative content analysis. We did that at the end of 2024, and we focused on the keyword search process focused on looking at children's or parents' perceptions, as parents are often the gatekeepers of children's mobility. Then at mobility services around autonomous ride-hailing, so ride-hailing services with drivers, autonomous vehicles, and shared autonomous vehicles, but also autonomous buses, because they're all kind of linked, and a lot of those studies were still interesting to, for example, ride-hailing itself, and then the impact on children's mobility behavior, for example, active travel. We only looked at peer-reviewed articles in English and that were published on Scopus, and from the qualitative content analysis for emergent thematic categories emerged. And I'm going to go into those in a second. And we identified 24 peer-reviewed articles, the first one published in 2017, and it kind of shows it's still a small research field, but an emerging research field. And the most of these studies were had a quantitative research design, came from the US and Europe as the most studied regions, and parental perspectives were really dominant. Asking for parental perceptions or parental willingness studies. And there was little research on children in general, but especially on children as users of ride-hailing services. And to go into the findings, I'm going to present 3 findings today. So the first finding is around the idea of parents as the gatekeepers of children using these services, which is kind of obvious, but parental permission is really important, but it is conditional. And the literature reviews showed that in general, even the research on parents was dominant. So parental permission was a dominant focus in research, with willingness studies. And it showed that willingness to allow unaccompanied travel of children was low, but it wasn't fixed. So it would increase with certain variables. The willingness varies across parents, and higher willingness may be associated with higher education and household income, previous AV or ride-hailing experience, children's age, and also different usage scenarios. So, for example, whether these services were shared with other children or not, or whether you as a parent were in the vehicle as well. And the reason why I wrote may be associated with is that the literature was often contradictory. So it's hard to say yet what the actual variables are or not, and more research is needed on that, but these were first indications. And the third finding around parental permission is that context matters. So the willingness differed, for example, according to whether the service was autonomous or not. So an interesting study, for example, found that parental willingness was higher for AVs than services with drivers, because parents were so worried about their children being unaccompanied with a driver. And obviously, geography and culture around children's independent mobility. So German study, for example, found that German parents were unwilling for their children to substitute walking through a service like this. But other studies showed that in countries where with high income, you would have a driver, for example. So there it was more likely that middle income families would use an AB, and high income families would still use a driver. So obviously geography and cultural context are important. So as a synthesis, children's mobility license remains conditional on parental willingness, and that willingness is context dependent, which is kind of obvious. The second finding was around safety. So that safety concerns are central to this parental permission. And what I found really interesting here is that safety here could be discussed in three different ways. So there was the safety around the technology or automation technology itself. So can I trust the technology as a parent? And topics that came up in these studies were the reliability of automation, the vehicle system safety, but also what would happen in case of unexpected situations. The second safety discourse was around unsupervised children. So can my child travel safely by themselves? And issues were the lack of supervision, not just trusting their children, for example, to use a seatbelt or whatever, not to make a mess in the vehicle, but also them being by themselves without having the opportunity to immediately ask for help, like when you had a driver. Also the ability of children to respond in unexpected situations, and also the fear of strangers. So for example, in a shared usage scenario where another passenger would enter it as well, this was something that parents found very concerning. And the third, almost strongest relation that you could find in the literature was, can I trust the driver? So as I said already, parents were especially concerned around their fear of the driver as a stranger and their child being alone with this driver around the question of safeguarding. But we also saw that the role of technology showed a lot of potential here. So remote supervision, the ability to remotely supervise would be able to reduce those safety concerns of parents, for example, through audio and video monitoring and GPS tracking. And these are, for example, all tools that all these services have already incorporated. The third finding is that children have very distinct needs as users that also differ to parents. So attitudes to AVs, for example, attitudes are still uncertain in this literature because, the literature shows different mixed attitudes and different levels of trust. Some saw in some surveys that trust was really high, and others showed that children had very little knowledge of automation, so it's still very open. But studies indicate that children are less concerned about the AV technology itself, but more about their actual user experience. And that brings me to the second point around social safety. So in the few studies that actually did survey or interview children, children talked about their concerns about other passengers, especially in unsupervised situations. And for example, children said that they felt less likely to be helped than adults. And children also said that they really would like to have this human supervision or this human safety person in a vehicle. And other questions were around practical access. So children were concerned about having access to a phone. What happens if your phone runs out of battery? Around credit and payment, as well as service availability. So children's concerns in these studies seem to center on the experience of using the service independently and not as much on the technology as comparing to their parents' perceptions. But also to say that if the evidence remains really sparse and much more research is needed, actually researching with children. And to come to my last slide, and I don't know how I'm doing with time, so please give me a shout out if I'm being too slow.
We still have 2 minutes and a half. Go on.
Perfect. All right. So coming back to the question, how might autonomous ride-hailing reshape children's independent mobility? What we saw in the literature review is looking at the first question, how have children been considered as users, is that children are currently mostly considered in the literature through adult perspectives around the questions of permission and safety, and that more research is really necessary to understand children as users in their own right. And the second research question, to what extent children's independent mobility, this concept is considered, is that there has been really limited explicit engagement with children's independent mobility. So from the 24 studies, only 2 kind of touched around active mobility, but mostly that wasn't touched upon at all. But the review shows that there are a lot of implications of these services on the concept itself. So if you look again to the right graph, if we go through these topics, for example, around the question of agency, we've got the question of, it's still so strongly tied, or even stronger tied, to parental permission than potentially walking to school might be. And also, what does the idea of remote supervision do to the question of independence and agency? Then we've got this idea of that children's mobility back in the day used to be tied to active mobility in this concept. But this, through these services, this is more and more replaced by more sedentary travel. You could also argue, though, that this has happened anyway already, and that a lot of children are being driven in the global north already to school anyway. So that's a concept to explore. Then the idea of neighborhood, that children's independent mobility used to be tied to local travel, which is really changing through these services, because now you're able to be more independent of your parents, but you're doing direct A to B travel instead of roaming around the neighborhood. You're able to travel further distances, and you're potentially alone, because it's very unlikely for these services to be shared. So yeah, whereas children's independent mobility used to be tied to like walking together with someone to school, as an example. And then all these interdependencies that are emerging or being enforced, for example, the access to smartphones, or the equity issues around your parents being able to pay for it, and etc. And that's basically what I'm exploring in my PhD. All right, I think I nailed it for time. And thank you very much for bearing with me. Please ask me any questions. And if you're interested in the full review, please scan the QR code, have a look at the paper, and feel free to shoot me any questions afterwards as well.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting presentation. And so there is a first question in the chat by Four. So he says, why is the subject group defined by age? Why not by value of taxi rides, or as people with legal and practical supervision, or people not allowed to drive themselves? So why is a person's age a valid criteria for a study population?
Sorry, I'm reading the whole question to understand it. Why not by value of taxi ride? As people's legal practical supervision, I mean, you could obviously look at all these different things itself, but like, I think, and maybe the person who's asked a question can explain a bit more, but I think the like children itself have a very distinctive user group, because, for example, they're not, even in a legal term, they're not allowed to make a lot of decisions. And so you have the whole product itself is very different from the normal products that a lot of us have written. And so to look at that and how, first of all, why are these services coming now? What technology has changed that enable to respond to these safety issues that we had beforehand, and also to understand how this might change the way children travel, I think for me makes sense. But please explain, whoever asked, so I can answer it better. I can't see who asked it, so I get to ask it.
I think there's another comment following up, I think. I don't know if you can read it. So why is the degree of distinctiveness of needs in and on itself significant?
Would the same be true of other arbitrary verbs? I don't know if I fully understand this idea that's coming, but why is a need significant? I mean, if we don't meet users' needs, then they're not going to be used. That's one question. Like, especially also in this whole research on autonomous vehicles, there's a lot of assumptions on parental willingness, but then if children don't actually want to use them for specific reasons, why then it doesn't matter. Number one. Number two is also around protection and safeguarding. So in my research, I've seen that, and it goes a bit to the social media debate about children as well. So we allow a lot of services and then regulate later, but with platforms and network effects, that's really hard. And in my research, I've already shown that, I'm researching that there are already so many safety issues currently that are not being responded in the platform economy, that when you then open this idea of an unaccompanied minor, this even allows for more it needs even more safeguarding. So that's why I'm looking at it. And to see also if we need specific policy responses or not. Because right now, consumer passenger laws, they normally don't dictate an age limit. So you could basically put a baby in a autonomous vehicle as well. The issues then you have, for example, is to ensure child seat restraints or something, but consumer passenger law normally doesn't dictate age.
Okay, thank you. There's two more questions. So the second one is from John Harding. So as an age group, children may be better users with the technology, whereas other groups may have some difficulties with the tech. So is this gap worth exploring more?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that came up as well. So that children are often early adopters of technology, and especially like in the context of transport, for example, if you look at e-scooters in Australia, so they've been quickly adopted, for example, by that. So I think it's definitely interesting, and it's also that's also another reason why we need to research more with children. Maybe parents are really scared about all these things, but children actually have really different ideas about that. And for example, if you just look at the tracking, so all these services, they allow GPS tracking, so parents can track constantly where their children are. And initially, in a lot of research, the discussion was around, is that about agency, is that an issue, and so on. But children actually said, we're so used to this tracking through all these other technologies anyway, we don't care. So that's why it's really important to do more research with different age groups, because obviously that's more a teenager thing than like a 6-year-old. But yeah, it's definitely worth exploring.
Okay, so I have a question regarding because you mentioned briefly about the original idea of CIM was mostly related to active travel, right? So kids walking more, biking more, inside exploring the neighborhood. So from a policy perspective, what do you think about this, the promotion of autonomous vehicles or this kind of like car-oriented traffic modes in terms of for children, right? Because we know that this creates habits, right? So if you've trained kids to move away from walking and biking at a very young age, then all this effort that we're trying to do to nudge people into active mobility at an older age is going to be much more difficult, right? So do you have any findings regarding that or your personal opinion on the matter?
Yeah, 100%. So, as an example, in Australia, but also in Germany, because I'm German, we've got a lot of policy around increasing active travel to school. And so, on the one hand, you've got this. And on the other hand, you've got these services emerging where there's currently no regulation on age at all. And so, there's definitely a gap what's happening. And I'm also researching with industry. And in these industry interviews, that's the exact reason why they are or one reason why the platform economy is going into that space, because they know that there's demand. Children, or especially teenagers, they want to travel independently from their parents. But also because if you can secure them as riders now, they will ride later as well, right? So it's like creating already an access to this market and having a faithful user for the future. So from the platform economy's perspective, it obviously makes sense to explore this. But like from a policy perspective, we need to think about not just about security and safety, but also what this means for active mobility and all these policy avenues.
Okay, and then a little bit related as well. When you're looking at the different contexts, was there any difference regarding attitudes in terms of more car-oriented cities and more transit-oriented cities? I'm thinking about like maybe Japanese context or where children are very independent, you know, they commute to school sometimes, walking because it's mandated by public schools, but also in many cases public transport as well. But in other cities where that's not an availability, there's not a possibility for that, then it's just like, okay, just go with the cars. So was there a difference in that regard?
I mean, I really noticed it even in the study design. So in a lot of the American studies, in the study design, they didn't even ask, for example, in the surveys about how does your child normally travel, and is it an issue if they replace active travel, for example. That wasn't even a consideration, which kind of really shows you that that's already the norm. Whereas in the European studies that I looked at, especially the German and Swedish one in my mind, I've got in my mind right now, they discussed about the potential impacts, and in the German study, German parents were not willing to substitute walking by an autonomous, I think it was a demand responsive transit, but like by a service like that. So that's definitely a consideration, and that's why I think like context is so important. Yeah, and there was one study with children where the children themselves in the EU actually said that they would like to use these services in case of bad weather events when they can't ride, but they need to know that they're able to bring their bike on as well. Like looking at the vehicle design, that they wanted to have a bigger vehicle to be able to bring their bike, have enough space for their like bikes and backpacks.
That is very interesting. So I would like to wrap it up here. If there are any other questions, you can feel free to post it on the chat. And then I think Joanna was still here with us, so she can also address those directly. There's one final comment that I don't think it needs to be addressed, but you can address in chat is comments I heard several years ago about potentially bad circumstance, siblings who fight. I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it there because that's probably a way longer discussion than that. But if you want to answer about that, just do it on the chat. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for the questions.
Okay, so I would like to move on to our second presenter, which is Atiya Anika, and she's going to be talking about exploring the factors contributing to service hours and dead kilometer durations for ride-hailing services in Dhaka. Whenever you're ready, can you please share your screen?
Hello, can you see me?
Yes.
Hello. Hello, I'm Atiya Anika. I've just finished my master's from Bangladesh University of Engineering Technology. So I'm today presenting a part of my research here. Okay, so I'm sharing my screen.
Please go ahead.
Can you see it?
Still loading. Yes.
Okay. So I don't know, have you ever traveled in Bangladesh or not? My study area is Dhaka. If I first mention the Dhaka city first, it is a city of overcrowded, overpopulation, and yes, severe congestion. Okay, so here finding a minor cause of traffic congestion and making a solution to it may bring relief to millions of people. So today I am targeting I'm trying to focus on one specific mode of travel, which is ride-hailing services, and how it actually contributing to congestion. So here is my topic, exploring the factors contributing to service hour and date-heading duration for ride-hailing services in Dhaka. My co-author is Dr. Ornisha Ina, who is Associate Professor of Department of Civil Engineering and Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology. Here is my presentation outline. Moving forward, overview on global expansion. So, as you all know, ride-hailing is an urban mobility mode which provides door-to-door accessibility. First emerged in late 20s and started rapidly expansion in 2010s. But let's focus the context of Bangladesh. It was first emerged in Dhaka in 2015 with Pathao. Currently available modes of ride-hailing are car, bike, motorcycle, and CNG. And available platforms are Uber, Pathao, Ovai, InDrive, etc. Uber claimed that it has generated income source for over 3.5 lakh driver partners in Dhaka. Though the ride-hailing services provide improves mobility, provides accessibility, comfort, convenient app-based booking, but at the same time, it can contribute to congestion. So, if I focus on the transport challenges in Dhaka city, as I already mentioned, it has overcrowded and outdated public transport. It has unplanned and inefficient bus routes. Poor road infrastructure and severe traffic congestion is its regular phenomena. And average speed of Dhaka has dropped to 4.8 km per hour. Commuters lost almost 1 working hour and $3 to $4 per day due to this congestion. So it has become necessity to look beyond the general traffic conditions and focus on the emerging sectors like ride-hailing services. Here comes the word deadheading. One critical yet overlooked term is deadheading. So what is deadheading duration or ideal time? The time spent by the drivers after dropping off a passenger before picking up next passenger is referred to as the deadheading duration or ideal time of the drivers. There are some papers focusing on this deadheading duration, but most of them are based on developed city context, such as ride-hailing mileage efficiency is often reported between 55 to 67%. Empirical evidence indicates up to 25% of vehicle distance may occur as overheading. Again, some findings show that in some cities, only about half of total vehicle kilometers are spent serving passengers. So, high deadheading duration in ride-hailing increases empty vehicle movement, which adds to traffic congestion pressure in dense urban systems like Dhaka city. Therefore, analyzing factors influencing this deadheading duration is essential to understand ride-hailing's real network impact and driver operational behavior. Moving to literature review section, actually there are a lot of research work about this ride-hailing field based on demand side, such for example, passenger travel behavior, mode choice, service adoption, user satisfactions, etc. But supply side investigations actually remain relatively limited. If I mention some, driver behavior and labor supply have been discussed or analyzed. Operational performance and service efficiency is another aspect. Vehicle activity and repositioning behavior has also been discussed. But interestingly, all of them are based on developed city context. The only paper I found about this deadheading or repositioning behavior or efficiency is this one, this paper where in this subcontinent, driver repositioning decisions park and wait versus cruising in Australia and India, which is basically a comparing paper between the context of Australia and India. This is the only paper I found in this subcontinent. So based on this, if I mention the research gap, there are limited supply side transport analysis and disaggregate behavioral evidence is also limited. And most importantly, developing megacity like Dhaka's evidence is scarce. So if I move to the data description part, my study area is Dhaka. I mentioned already, it has a population of 25 million, area of 1464 square kilometer. It has road-based mobility system, high congestion and demand volatility is its constant characteristics. Here, the ride-hailing services regulate under the ride-sharing guideline 2017. So for data collection framework, I designed a structured questionnaire survey focus where I included socio-demographic and operational factors of the drivers. For field implementation, I actually conducted the survey from late June to mid-July 2024. I tried to cover all the 54 thanas of Dhaka city. For driver level data collection, a total 520 driver data were collected. I tried to collect full day and full week temporal coverage of data. For questionnaire survey, it can be classified as socio-demographic characteristics, which include age, driver's age, income, educational qualification, employment status, etc. Operational characteristics include driver's experience, rating, vehicle ownership, the mode they drive. Trip and operational duration characteristics include driver's driving hour, average trip duration, rate heading duration, trip category. And household and residential characteristics include household ownership, housing structure, parking availability, number of dependent people, etc. So moving to the methodology part, my two variables are service hour and dead kilometer duration. If I see the distribution here, service hour distribution is skewed, is concentrated at mid-range, and it is clearly non-uniform spread. And for dead kilometer duration, it is right skewed distribution, strong concentration at lower duration values. So both variables exhibit non-uniform and skewed duration distributions, indicating time-dependent event dynamics that are better captured through duration-based modeling. So I choose to duration-based hazard survival analysis models to analyze my two independent variable, service hour and dead heading duration. If I define the service hour, it is a net active working time devoted to passenger service activities calculated by excluding dead heading duration from the total driving hour. For survival analysis, the event is the service termination, and for dead heading duration, the event for survival analysis is passenger matching, which is the end of dead heading duration. So for methodological framework, I chose duration models. And the best fitted model was chosen based on AIC BIC log likelihood values. Dead heading duration to service hour ratio was used to check the efficiency of the drivers. So here is the modeling framework. Proportional hazard and AFT models were used in this study. Proportional hazard model examined how explanatory variables influence the hazard rate. Here, hazard ratio is the exponential of coefficient. Hazard ratio greater than 1 indicates higher risk, and hazard ratio less than 1 indicates lower risk. This is the equation of proportional hazard model, which shows that hazard at time t equals to baseline hazard multiplied by exponential of x beta, where beta is the model coefficient. For accelerated failure time model, it actually examines the survival time directly, which shows the equation log t equals to x beta plus epsilon, where again beta is the coefficient and epsilon is the error term here. Under the duration-based survival modeling, I used total 6 models to get the best fitted result. I used Weibull, Gompers, exponential, log normal, log logistic, and Cox proportional hazard model. So moving to the next part, I also determine the dead heading ratio variation using Kruskal-Wallis test. So if I define the dead heading ratio, it is basically the ratio between dead kilometer duration and service hour multiplied by 100. Dead heading ratio is calculated as the distance traveled without passenger per service hour. Measure the intensity of unproductive movement within operational time. Okay, so it is Kruskal-Wallis test is a non-parametric median comparison test. The purpose was to check the variation in different driver category groups. And as my data was non-uniform, I couldn't use ANOVA. I had to use Kruskal-Wallis test. So moving to the results section, descriptive overview of the respondents. This I found the data directly from the survey. It was found that most drivers work full-time, with almost 70% relying on ride-hailing as their primary income source. Vehicle ownership is very low. Only 22% drivers own the vehicle they drive. Driving pattern is heavily daytime oriented. More than 85% drivers operate between 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. and nearly half of them drive daily. Okay, the majority of trips are within Dhaka city, reflecting the urban focused nature of ride-hailing operations. Here are some mean and standard deviations of some variables are shown here. Service hour, which shows that service hour has mean 7.85 hour, among which dead heading duration is 0.76 hour. And average single trip time is also 0.76 hour. Average driver rating is 3.64. So to illustrate the results, some descriptive overview here, it shows that majority of the drivers are from 1 to 3 years experience. Again, from age category, majority of drivers are from 30 to 39 years old, and the lowest are from 50 to 59 years age category. For employment status, almost 70% drivers drive full-time and choose ride-hailing services as their primary mode of ride-hailing service. Distribution of driving modes, it shows that motorcycle has the highest percentage, followed by car, then CNG. So, and moving to the analysis for service hour. Here is the model fit comparison for service hour, which shows that Gompertz PH is the best fitted model, which has the highest log likelihood and lowest AIC-VIC value. And the Gompertz PH is the best, not only because of these statistical characteristics, it can be said from the graph also. I plotted all the 5 models here to show the comparison, which shows that Gompertz shows a steep increase, while Webull shows a moderate upward. This blue one is Webull, shows a moderate upward trend in hazard over time. And log logistic, log normal shape displays hump shaped hazard, increasing initially, then declining over time. The exponential model, as it's completely it shows a assumption is flat hazard, so it doesn't show any shape or increasing pattern. Significant determinants in Gompertz model for service hour, it shows that here is the demographic characteristics of ride-hailing drivers. Before interpreting the results, I'm mentioning the hazard ratio. What does it mean? Hazard ratio 1 is greater than 1 indicates a higher hazard, implying the greater likelihood of ending the service hour. Thus, higher hazard means shorter service duration. And again, a hazard ratio less than 1 means longer service duration. So if I interpret one aspect, income. Drivers who have income 20 to 50K have hazard ratio less than 1 compared to drivers with income 0 to 20K. That means driver with mid-income range have lower hazard compared to low income range. Lower hazard mean higher service hour. Again, for rating, drivers who have rating 4 to 5 have lower hazard ratio than drivers with lower rated 1 to 2.5. Lower hazard means a higher chance of lower chance of ending the service duration. That means longer service hour. Here is the operational characteristics of ride-hailing drivers, which show that night shift drivers have much more significant hazard ratio, and great hazard ratio is higher than 1 compared to morning shift drivers. Higher hazard ratio indicates higher chance of ending the event. That means shorter service hour. So moving to the analysis of dead-heading duration, model fit comparison again for dead-heading duration, I found that Gompertz PH is the best fitted model, highest log likelihood, lowest AIC-VIC values. Also from shape parameter, Gompertz show again steepest one. This is a Gompertz, and we will show a moderate upward trend in hazard over dead-heading duration. Log logistic, log normal here also plays hump-shaped pattern, and exponential is a flat curve. Here again, hazard ratio 1 indicates higher hazard, higher chance of ending the event. That means shorter dead kilometer ratio, and hazard ratio less than 1 indicates the opposite. Among the demographic characteristics of ride-hailing drivers, here we can see that drivers with experience 3 to 7 years have higher hazard compared to the drivers who have lower experience. Higher hazard means higher chance of ending the event. That means shorter dead kilometer duration. Here, interesting findings can be found here. Among the operational characteristics of ride-hailing drivers, it is seen that drivers who operate motorcycle have hazard ratio lower than who operate car. That means car drivers have hazard ratio, car drivers have chance of ending the event lower than the motorcycle drivers. Again, the drivers who operate CNG have higher hazard ratio than car drivers. That means CNG drivers have higher hazard ratio than car drivers, higher chance of ending the event, shorter dead heading duration. So variation in dead-heading ratio and operating efficiency, it shows that demographic characteristics of ride-hailing drivers where income and educational qualification show significant impact, and either I have box plotted the findings, which shows that with the increase of income, actually dead-heading or dead kilometer ratio decreases. That means here the most efficient driver category can be seen as the drivers who have income 40 to 50K. Okay, next the one is the educational qualification. It shows that with the with the higher educational level, dead heading or dead kilometer ratio actually increases. It may be because people who have higher education may don't take these ride hailing services as their primary mode. Maybe they have another, this is the secondary mode for them. Maybe they have more options alternate for their earning. Here is the demographic characteristics of ride-hailing drivers, where rating, experience, and vehicle ownerships are shown here, which shows that the drivers whose rating are higher are the most efficient one, lowest dead kilometer ratio. Drivers, here is the category of experience, which shows that most experienced drivers whose experience is 6 to 7 years have the lowest dead kilometer ratio. That means highest, most efficient. They are the most efficient one. Among vehicle ownership, those who don't own their vehicle, they drive, are the most efficient one here. For ride-hailing mode type, I already mentioned that the motorcycle drivers are the actually less efficient one, followed by car and then CNG drivers. For work shift, for drivers work shift, it is seen that night shift drivers are the most inefficient one, having higher dead kilometer ratio. For spatial classification of trip, drivers who take trip within Dhaka city have a less dead kilometer ratio, means that they are most efficient one. And for if I mention about the number of dependent households in driver's family, it actually doesn't show any pattern, but it is seen that drivers who have one dependent member at home is the most efficient one, having lowest dead kilometer ratio. And for number of children in the driver's household, it shows that if the number of children at home is 1, then it is the most inefficient driver, having highest dead kilometer ratio. So conclusion, key findings, service engagement. I already mentioned all the findings. For service engagement, it shows that higher income groups, graduate level income, higher rated experience rating, worship, trip frequency, driving days, all of them are actually significant factors for service engagement. And for day dating duration, trip frequency, experience, working days, driving mode, work shift, trip location are the significant ones. For efficiency, higher income and greater driving experience, greater rating, within Dhaka trip vehicle ownership are the higher efficient drivers, and for lower efficiency, low trip activity, higher educated drivers, night shift and motorcycle operators are the lowest efficient drivers. So to conclude my presentation, if I mentioned the policy implications here, from my finding, it's seen that sustained engagement and experience indicating strong dependence on long working hours and continuous platform activity. Again, early stage inefficiency suggests that the need for support mechanisms for new or less active drivers to reduce adoption time. Spatio-temporal and demand imbalances highlight the importance of better trip allocation and infrastructure planning in low demand areas. And most importantly, Bangladesh labor regulations may consider working hour guidelines in ride-hailing platforms to balance efficiency with driver well-being. So, to conclude the work, I must acknowledge some limitations. I only worked on 520 ride-hailing drivers and only focused on Dhaka city, which actually limit the generalizability of the data. So, extend the analysis to larger and multi-city dataset may improve the finding. Behavioral presentation, again, duration models capture only operational patterns but not detailed driver level behavior. So incorporating trip level or real-time data to capture within the behavior may improve the finding. And platform operational factors I didn't include, or actually I didn't get any platform level data here. So real-time integrate dispatch or pricing mechanism was not here included in my finding. Including this may improve my findings. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me. Feel free to ask any question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment, but I want to first to confirm one thing. How was deadheading measured again?
Sorry, can you ask again?
Oh, how did you measure deadheading?
Oh,
Maybe you said it,
deadheading.
but probably missed it.
I measure. Actually, it's a completely survey-based concept. I ask the drivers on a random day how much time they have to wait in 2 trips.
But you ask them to wait but while driving. Because if they
Sorry?
just stand like while driving, right? So they're just driving around. That's the
Yes,
waiting
I
along is
actually
not part of it.
I performed the study. I employed my team to have to do the field survey. They asked the
Yeah.
drivers about they completely the results is based on the survey answers of their drivers. They asked the drivers how long they
Yes.
waited on a random day to get another trip.
No, this is my concern. Like waiting and driving while waiting for a passenger is different, right? Because deadheading is only while you were just driving around empty, right? So I
Well,
was wondering about the
date heading,
question itself,
yeah.
whether you can
Okay.
separate waiting somewhere
Okay.
standing there or yeah.
Here, my date heading term include uh, getting the request, driving to fetch the passenger, taking the passenger before starting the ride. So actually ending the ride from before starting the next ride. Between this time is I mentioned termed here deadheading ratio, deadheading duration.
Okay. And so you mentioned earlier that most of the studies were being done in developed countries. So when you look at your results and the results that have been reported in the literature, what are the key differences that you can identify?
From the developed city.
Yeah, from the literature in general, yes.
From literature, actually, I didn't. Most of the literature that work on this efficiency um, measure the deadheading kilometer or mileage. So I didn't find any of this time-based literature yet. So I couldn't actually compare from this deadheading perspective, duration perspective. All the literature I mentioned here are basically from mileage perspective.
Yeah. Okay. There is one question regarding the data was collected from ride-hailing company. It was just completely relying on interviews. I think you already mentioned that, right? But you want to add something to that?
I can.
So I can read it. So was data also collected from ride-hailing companies, as in drivers database, deadheading, etc., or is just interviews of the drivers?
1 second, please. Let me check it. Okay. So, mm, writing for partners as in driver database, dating it, or is it just it's just an interview of the drivers. I couldn't get the database from the platform side.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's an issue, right? Because in most cases, kilometers is a very accurate measure of deadheading, right? So I wonder if it's possible to find a way to translate these travel times to kilometers so you can actually compare with the existing literature. But yeah, I will understand the limitations of working in this kind of contexts. But if there are no any other questions, then I would like to wrap it up here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Then moving on to our third presenter of the day, Sahana. We're going to be talking about factors influencing riding behavior of app-based delivery riders. It's a comprehensive review. So whenever you're ready, can you please share your screen and remember to self-introduce before you start your presentation.
Hello everyone, am I audible?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, now I am presenting my screen. Hmm.
Okay, while she loads the screen, a reminder to all the participants that you can post your questions on the chat, and I'll try to address them during the Q&A session.
Is that the option, the share, it's in the bottom of our window. That is it, no?
It should be there, I guess. Maybe Anissa, can you help out here?
Yeah, I'll,
Oh, there you
yeah.
go. Okay.
Now, is my screen visible now?
Yes, I can see your screen. It's still
Okay.
on Yeah, set it to
I will put in the
presentation.
PPT view.
Yeah, please. Perfect. Go ahead. Remember that we're aiming for 15 minutes of presentation time.
Okay. So, hello all, I'm Sahana SV from National Institute of Technology, Tiruchirappalli. I'm a second year research scholar working with this Dr. Darshana Om. So, my topic is the factors influencing riding behavior of app-based delivery riders, a comprehensive review. So, in general, two-wheelers are one of the vulnerable mode of transportation with the highest share of fatalities and crash rates due to their lower stability and the lack of physical protection. Whenever this vulnerability is combined with the nature of food delivery work, such as timelines, high workload, and continuous movement in traffic, the risk becomes even more pronounced. It is not just a job itself, but the working condition under the riders operate at elevates their exposure to the risk. For example, these pressure to complete the deliveries quickly, along with the fatigue and time constraints, pushes the riders towards the unsafe practices such as speeding and traffic violations. So the interaction between the already vulnerable mode of transportation and the demanding working condition significantly increases the likelihood of crashes, making this an important road safety concern. So based on the existing literature, the major factors that influencing risky riding behavior among the food delivery riders are occupational factors, road traffic and environmental factors, socio-demographic characteristics, and vehicle equipment and safety related factors. And there are the sub-factors or variables which are influencing the major factors. It's discussed in the upcoming slides. So it's many studies across different countries consistently highlight the piece rate payment system and incentives encourage the riders to take risks, leading to higher traffic violation and crash involvement. And also similarly, the delivery deadlines and set timelines creates the pressure that pushes the riders to unsafe practices such as speeding and aggressive maneuvers. And another important factor is also the customer ratings, where the subjective evaluations leads them to take some unsafe riding practices to all here also. And the next one is road traffic and environmental factors. The significant factors for the road traffic environment are the road surface quality, the visibility, traffic congestion, heat and rain. The poor road surfaces such as the potholes that with the uneven payment increases the unstableness in the vehicles. Also the visibility, especially at the glareness or the obstructive views, especially at the night times, also induces the likelihood of the crashes. In addition, the traffic congestion, particularly near the intersection, creates a stress and time pressure, encouraging the riders to take such as like violating the red lights and weaving and against the traffics. And also the heat and rain also simultaneously add a significant distress to the riders, whereas the long-term waiting and signal with the heat in countries such as India, which will reduce the decision-making ability by making them tired and fatigued. And the rain also, the roads with potholes combined with the rain, which also causes the slipperiness among the riders. And the next is socio-demographic characteristics. So the younger riders, particularly lesser than 30, are more prone to speeding. This may due to their lack of experience or the higher risk-taking tendencies. Also, the further the riders lesser than the 2 years of experience, also the novice riders are prone to risky riding activities. At the same time, the economic pressure. The income status. The riders with lower economic background or lesser income group, in order to earn more, they are also taking some risky riding activities. The education also plays a role, where the riders with higher education tend to have better safety awareness and adopt safer riding practices, while lower education levels link to greater risk-taking tendencies. And the married riders are one with many family and financial responsibilities. They have the urge to earn lots, so they are also taking the riskier attitudes, as well as the single young riders are also exhibit the risky riding behavior by usage of mobile phones. And also the vehicle equipment and safety related factors also plays a crucial role. For the vehicle factors like the age of the vehicle, type of the vehicle, and the weight of the vehicle. The older vehicle, which is like greater than 3 years and lesser maintenance, it is also associated with the unsafe behavior. And also the type of the vehicle, whether it is a e-bike or a conventional vehicle or automatic motorcycle, these different types of vehicles shows different injury patterns. And also the weight of the vehicle. With the existing vehicle weight and the weight of the delivery boxes, it also causes some balancing effects. Their reliability and the control of the vehicle, it may lose sometimes and also causes some unsafe ridings. And finally, the non-usage of helmet and safety gloves has also some significant effects on crashes. So with these factors, different factors have different impact on the riders, the food delivery riders. These factors that create some impact on both riders' physical and mental health. So this impact is only leading to the risky riding behaviors based on the studies. So one of the key factors when coming to the effect of occupational factors on food delivery riders, the key factor is piece rate pay, where here such riders, the food delivery partners are comes under the gig economy. So where they are paid per delivery. So in order to earn more, they are taking more deliveries in the lesser time. As a result, the riders are riding aggressively, often overspeeding or violating traffic rules to maximize their earnings. Similarly, the incentive-based system such as intensifies this behavior also. Riders push themselves to achieve the targets even when they are physically exhausted or mentally stressed. They still choose to ride to earn more. This because this gig economy shows the flexibility working hours. There is no any restriction. Anyone can work at any time. So this makes them to overwork like more than 10 hours like that. Another important factor is delivery deadlines, which impose strict time constraints. And this deadlines creates a mental stress and fatigue, forces the riders to prioritize speed over the safety. This often results in the distraction, signal violations, and risky riding patterns. And also in the customer rating system, introduce psychological pressure. Riders fear of the negative ratings, even factors beyond their control. For example, the long-term waiting in the restaurant and delays in packaging food, but that falls under the rider's count. They may fear in the negative responses. This makes them to ignore the traffic rules or take some shortcuts. And the effect of road traffic environment factors on food delivery riders. The potholes, whenever the riders encounter the potholes, that create some vibrations in both vehicles and the riders, it is creating the musculoskeletal pain also. And also the poor visibility and the glareness, leading to the sudden braking or erratic maneuvers, and it also causes the higher crash risk. And notably, the long-term waiting in the traffic signals and long-term waiting in such signals, combined with the, as mentioned, extreme heat and rain, where here the riders lost their patience. Sometimes they tend to violate the signal or some activities like the frustrated activities like frequent braking and acceleration and deacceleration in congestion also further increase their physical strain to on. Simultaneously, together with the calls and customers and further notification, this all together creates some impact on riders' physical and mental health. Also, the extreme heat causes fatigue, distraction, reduce the decision-making ability, pushes the riders towards the error. Similarly, as mentioned, the raining condition makes the riders to fall, or the rain droplets on the phone screen makes them difficult to tap the screen or the further able to see the upcoming orders, together create some difficult situations. And the effect of socio-demographic characteristics. Even though these riders are influenced by the job, occupational traits, and the external environment, still based on their perception and attitudes, certain behavior are influenced based on their marital status or economical background, their age and education. Based on this, the younger riders tends to show higher risk-taking tendency due to their impulsiveness based on the existing studies. Also, this experience have that The experience of the riders shows two different opinions. One is like that riders with lesser experience, in some studies it is stated like riders with lesser experience tend to show more risk-taking tendencies, as well as the greater experience tendency qualities in the riders also makes them to overspeed, like their high greater exposure to the road or overconfidence also pushes them to undertake some risky attitudes. And also, um, when coming to the financial pressure, this occupational characteristics like piece rate pay and incentives are common to all. But the riders from lower income background or the merit status are taking this more. This constraints are observed more by such riders. So this combined with this all occupational qualities and the lower income, the financial pressure or the family responsibilities pushes the riders to earn lot by taking some risky attitudes like violating signals and overspeeding. And the effect of vehicle and equipment. Um, so the older vehicles have the reduced reliability and the poor handling, which increases the likelihood of the crashes. In addition, the weight of the delivery boxes also further amplifies the existing behavior by raising the center of gravity, especially during the turning. And the safety equipments also plays a crucial role. Riders do not wear the helmet or vulnerable to severe injuries. Actually, in this job, wearing helmet for the long term also causes some pain in their back, neck, and so on. So based on this collected literature review, the inference and discussions are listed here. So the risky riding behavior among food delivery riders is not caused by a single factor. It emerges from the complex interaction of or the complex factors like that occupational, environmental, socio-demographic, and equipment-related factors. Platform-driven work systems such as incentives, strict deadlines, and customer ratings creates a continuous time pressure, often pushes riders towards the speeding. This pressure is further intensified when the unpaid waiting time and delivery delays are further compensated by riding faster in subsequent trips. At the same time, the algorithmic control and the limited autonomy restrict the rider's decision making, while the mobile phone usage during the rides also increase the distraction, like that unsafe ridings. Additionally, the fatigue and burnout from long working hours and heavy workload, lack of breaks also further creates their cognitive performance and safer decision making. Combined with the externalities like that heat and rain, long-term waiting in a signal and congestion also creates them. So together combines. These are the many factors where that one food delivery partners is taking the risky riding behavior. So in order to avoid the crashes, one must understand the factors or crashes among the food delivery riders. One must understand what are the influencing factors. And the research gaps identified on the existing literature review, like the combined impact of job condition and socio-demographic traits are not listed in many papers, as their individual impacts are stated, but their combination is not that much in detail. And also this unexpected delivery scenarios listed in the pictures. For example, this a rider's limited time is 20 minutes. Within he or she have to deliver the food from the restaurant to home. But what if the restaurant took so many time, like 15 minutes itself in the restaurant, then they are left with only 5 minutes to deliver the food. They are taking the overspeeding actions. And in upcoming picture, it is like sometimes while after reaching the residential area, the rider may not sure with that which is the exact address due to the confused delivery address from the customers. That also giving them plus 10 minutes or 20 minutes searching and roaming, even combined with a scorching sun. And sometimes the arrival of VIP movements or some scenarios in countries, we have to go in the different routes, that also delays. So with this situation and then rain and so on, so likewise that unexpected scenarios and then many other scenarios, like what if the riders is facing some crashes during the delivery and how they are handling, and such things are underexplored in the existing reviews. And I think okay, these are my references. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, oh, they have a question here. So can you see the chat? I'll read it out loud, but it's also on the chat. So, what's the use of app while riding? Difference in climate, heat, cold, rain, snow, day versus night, gender, considered in your research. You will see so many
Gender.
factors. Well,
Sorry?
if you can see the chat, can you
Charts.
see? No, no. Can you see the chat box? The question is in the chat box.
Okay. Chat
Yeah.
box.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So I was just reading it out loud, but if you can read it
Okay.
directly.
I think I have to scroll last for me.
I can read it, but what's the use of the app while
Ah,
writing? Differences in climate, day versus night, gender,
mm,
considered in your research. It would
mm.
seem so many factors would make it difficult to research. So perhaps there are limitations to your research. So could you discuss the limitations and the particular contribution and what is the priority of your study?
Priority of my
Of your study. So what is the priority?
study. What factor I prioritize?
Yes.
Okay.
Or the contribution that you prioritize.
Okay. What's the use of app while riding difference? Um, Actually, coming to the usage of app, since it is my review paper, I comprehend based on what the existing study. So, especially the prime concept behind such food delivery partners or gig workers is like they are highly dependent on their mobile phone app only. So the all the time, whatever these factors are influencing them, they are tend to attach with their phone screens. That itself, their half of their distraction is lost. So I guess in this study, I didn't highlighted the usage of mobile phone in the clearer aspect. I will consider in the upcoming study. And also the gender. The gender, it seems like in various study, when it's come to the female population, only lesser female riders are in this job. So due to the lack of sample size, many studies are not considered that gender qualities. So that's why I thought of not considering as the biggest factor, because since the even though when I started the survey in my city, I only found like among 200 male workers, find only 5 female workers. So I thought of due to its sample deficiency, I can't able to consider much. Even though questioning them, um, they have the different perspectives, like this risk taking behavior like speeding and over speeding, or mostly male riders are choosing that. When it's come to female rider, even though there's so many working conditions are there, they prefer to choose the non risk taking behavior. This is completely based on my questionnaire survey during when I started my research, not from the literature paper. And so limitations is like most of the study is on that uh, questionnaire based, like self-reported study. Some naturalistic study and simulations can be adopted for the future studies. It gives better results. And my priority is to um, as I mentioned, like individual impacts of all the factors are given, but when I strongly believe we can't say one's activities is completely based on job. For example, I mentioned the piece rate pay and incentives are common to all, but only the married riders are observing it lot. So the combination behind all the factors is essential, and I would like to elaborate the study by like. Naturalistic riding behavior by observing riders both physical and vehicle movement too, how their stress and anxiety levels are going, during which situation their heart rates are increasing. So I very less studies based on riders physical mental health. So I believe that should be taken in my study in future.
Okay, thank you. So I have some two questions actually. So the first one, so you listed up the relationships, right? So what variables are identified in the literature as having an effect, but I was curious about the magnitude, right? So what is the effect size? What does the literature say about which are the factors that have been shown to have the biggest effects in this case? Can you
Which of
elaborate
the
on that?
factors having biggest effect, you are
Yes, in
asking?
terms of magnitude, yes.
So since many literature is this study have only 40 to 50 papers, so all the papers mostly are considering the occupational characteristics. So based on the literature paper, we consider means it is, of course, it is occupational traits only, but that is what as for now they have studied. So I will say it is a occupational traits, the
But
job timings and deadlines, so on.
But is there a quantification of that effect? That is my question, right? Because in many cases, saying that, okay, the effect is positive or is negative, it's okay. But if you don't have an idea of the magnitude of how big this effect is, then it's very hard to try to devise a policy because it's hard to tell which one are the issues that we have to address first.
Oh, so among the occupational traits, you're asking me which we need to address first.
Well, ideally, what I'm asking is like whether there is a reporting of magnitudes of the effects among all the attributes that have been
Okay.
evaluated.
So coming to the magnitude, I feel like if we are implying some policies, since they have flexible timing, these riders can work anytime. There are no time limited restriction. They can log in, like they can work from 8 hours to 16 hours. So so the policies can be adopted like, okay, there should be a flexibility, but there should be a time limit. For example, anyone can work in any 8 hours or more than 8 to 9 hours. It should be restricted because they are working like 16 hours both day and night. So that can be they are not supposed to work like that. So from the app side, they have to stop the riders overworking.
Okay, but again, what I'm trying to say is that I understand that you're as an expert in this field, that's your inference. But if you would do a policy or a data based or evidence based policy design, then the idea you like to quantify what is the effect in terms of like elasticities or marginal effects. So this variable, this attribute has a percentage increase. So if this variable increases the likelihood of dangerous behavior by X%, right? So if you have that kind of data, then it's easier to say, okay, we have to pinpoint because we have much more potential to actually nudge behavior by addressing these factors that have been identified in the literature as being very impactful in terms of effect size, right? So that is just my advice. Maybe like if this presentation is going to go to a journal submission, maybe it will be interesting to add the discussion on the effect size.
Okay.
So, and then Joanna has a question about the policy implications of these findings. So, in Australia, there is a safety debate on food delivery riders and other bicycle users. So, in the particular context of your research, what are the implications? The policy implications?
They are asking. They are asking what are the policy implications of these findings.
Yes.
Actually, after reading so many papers, I feel like we can't compare different countries because the entire climatic conditions and your traffic is completely different compared to India. So once in general, I can say, but I need to understand in what way, like Australians, traffic conditions are there, how much pressure
But
they are taking.
I don't think she wants you to compare the Australian case. In the Indian case, what are the implications for policy in India?
Policy in India.
Yeah.
So as I earlier mentioned, like there should be a limited time, and also like when teaching seeing deeper inside this concept, I able to sense like there should be a decent economic growth and pay rate because
Yeah.
it's one of the SDG goals. Since these riders are working for 8 to 7 years, but still there is no growth in their financial status. They still remains the same, and also these are gig economic jobs should be. It's a part time. Their concept behind the gig economy is a part time job, but most riders are taking this like a full time and they are stressing more self, and that stress only leading to crashes. So based on the safety concerns, some campaigns can be contained and the awareness should be known for all the drivers what kind of job, how, in what level of life you should take, how long you can work. Likewise, it should be taught to all the riders. Since they are, most riders feel they are not recognized as the employees, they are not given proper respect. This so many things are going on. So the proper education based on gig economy workers and what kind of job it is, it needs to be addressed. Such kind of implications can be adopted.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so if there are no more questions, I would like to wrap it up here. Thank you very much. But please remember that you can still ask any questions to any other presenters on the chat, and I think they will be glad to address them. Thank you, Sahana.
Thank you.
So moving on to our final presentation of this session, Hiroshi Uemura is going to be talking about causal evidence on the rental premium of bike sharing convenience in Japanese cities using double Debiased machine learning with spatial confounding control. Hiroshi, whenever you're ready, please share your screen.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
I can see yes, I can see it.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. No, good afternoon. Maybe good afternoon. Okay. I'm a PhD student of University of Tokyo, Japan. And the rest of my presentation. And now in this study, we focused on the bike sharing system in Japan. And the bike sharing system have gained attention as a convenient and sustainable transportation mode. Okay. Let's start with, okay. In Japan, bike sharing system is implemented in more than 300 cities and being considered for implementation in about 40 cities as of March 2024. And bike sharing system is expected to bring some external effects such as environmental impact, like reducing greenhouse gas or health benefit. And one of the expected effect is impact on property values. And this effect is regarded as willingness to pay for the convenience of bike sharing system. And in the transportation research field, many studies conducted a hedonic analysis to estimate the effects of the development of transportation system, such as high-speed railway or metro or LRT. And in this study, we focused on the impact of bike sharing system on property values. And there are some characteristics of bike sharing system as a transport mode. One is vehicle availability and station trackability are unevenly distributed across time and space like this. And BS's convenience have multiple factors such as distance to bike sharing stations or number of accessible stations and housing units and number of available bikes at the stations. And we need to consider these multiple factors of convenience of bike sharing system. For the methodological problem, in order to estimate the causal effect of introduction impact, it is necessary to address endogeneity arising from the spatial correlation between treatment variable and covariates. And there are many covariates, including observable factors and unobservable factors, based on the spatial structures. And if these factors are not considered, omitted variable bias can be problematic. So in this research, as I explained before, we propose the assessment of VS's convenience, considering the multiple factors of the transport mode. And in addition, we propose a causal inference method to estimate causal effects of distance-based treatment effect for spatial cross-sectional data. And finally, we take into account the heterogeneity of treatment effect by using some statistical method. Okay, so there's some previous studies analyze the impact of bike sharing system on property values, and some study focused on docked bike sharing systems. However, this study did not consider some factors of convenience of bike sharing system. So we try to consider some factors as I explained. And we selected two cities as our study areas in Japan. One city is Chiba City, and this city is located in Greater Tokyo area. And another city is Shizuoka City, and this is a regional city, and this is really far from Tokyo or Osaka regional area. And Chiba City have a very convenient public transport network, but Shizuoka City have the less convenient transport network, and the modal share of public transport in Chiba City is more than 30%, but that of in Shizuoka City is less than 10%. And the number of bike sharing trip is quite larger in Chiba City than Shizuoka City. And now we propose the index to consider the multiple factors of convenience of bike sharing system. And this is, we call this index as bike availability index, BAI. And this index is introduced to evaluate convenience of bike sharing system, both distance to base stations and number of available bikes at the stations. And the data of number of available bikes is downloaded from ODPT from January 9 to January 22 for 2 years ago with 5-minute intervals. And this is an example of distribution of available bikes in Shizuoka City. And this index at each housing unit is calculated as an average value of number of available bikes existing in 1,000 buffer area from housing unit, weighted by the distance between housing units and stations, and BSS demands in the whole of the city. And by doing so, this index can consider the distance from housing unit to bike sharing station and number of available bikes at each station. Okay, this is a distribution of BAI at each city, and the BAI tend to be higher around railway stations, both city. Okay. And we utilized house rental price as outcome of this analysis. And this report is posted on Rifle Homes. This is one of the biggest rental housing platform in Japan. And this is a distribution of rental price in each city. Okay. And 26 variables related to housing unit and built environment are considered as covariates based on previous studies. The covariates related to housing unit includes age of housing unit or structure of house or area of housing unit, and etc. And the covariates related to built environment include distance to rail stations or distance to bus stop or land use around the housing unit. Okay, so now I explain the detail of methodology for this analysis. In order to estimate causal effects by treatment variable, it is important to deal with the confounding problem occurred by covariates. Covariates is a variables affect both treatment variable and outcome. And if covariates are not controlled enough, the analysis results in biased coefficient. So first, we conducted traditional approaches such as propensity score matching. However, as I explained in the background section, if without considering the spatial structures for data, omitted value bias can be problematic. So in order to address these issues, some previous studies suggested using spatial location as a proxy variable of unobserved spatial confounders. But in this study, based on the feature of treatment variable, positivity condition cannot be satisfied. So in order to address this issue, we proposed using Moran eigenvectors as a proxy variable of unobserved spatial confounders. However, these vectors can be high dimensional variables. So in order to address this issue, we proposed using double diagonal machine learning And finally, in order to estimate the heterogeneous treatment effect, we utilized orthogonal random forest. Okay, so let's explain the detail of analysis. So before conducting the DMN analysis, considering spatial confounding, we estimated the treatment effect by using propensity score analysis without considering spatial confounding, and then conducted a falsification test to check the omitted variable bias. And the result of falsification test suggests this estimation by propensity score without considering spatial confounding have some omitted variable bias. So we need to consider this spatial structure of the data. Okay. So a previous study defined spatial confounding as omitted variable bias occurred by measured confounders with spatial structure, and Gilbert proposed demonstrated the conditions under which estimation can be performed by removing spatial confounding using location information, that is latitude and longitude, as a proxy variable of spatial confounder. And the two conditions are ignorability and positivity. And ignorability can be satisfied in this study, but positivity cannot be satisfied using spatial location, because this condition means treatment variables contains elements not depending on location information. Yes. So, however, the treatment variable in this study is completely depending on the location of housing unit and bike sharing stations. So this condition cannot be satisfied if using the spatial location information. So we have to overcome this problem. And in order to overcome this problem, we proposed a method using the one eigenvectors as a proxy variable of spatial confounders. And this one eigenvector is defined as the eigenvector of spatial weight matrix. And spatial weighting matrix is defined as a distance between housing units. And the one eigenvector can capture the spatial pattern of locations, but this value is not unique to the each location. So this variable is suitable for the proxy variable of spatial confounders. However, because the one eigenvector is eigenvector of spatial weight matrix, these variables can be high dimensional. So in order to overcome this problem, we propose to use DML, double device machine learning. This method is consist of 3 steps. First, estimate nuisance functions for outcome and treatment using arbitrary machine learning method, and using the estimated machine learning model, outcome variable and treatment variable are orthogonalized. By doing this process, we can overcome the regularization bias, and finally estimate the treatment effect by using cross-fitting. And this process enable us to overcome the overfitting bias. And in the next step, as previous studies pointed out, the impact of property values is heterogeneous depending on the distance from railway stations. So in order to confirm this heterogeneity, we utilize orthogonal random forest ORF in this study. This This method is similar to DML because we first estimate the nuisance function for treatment variable and outcome. But in this method, in order to reveal the heterogeneity of treatment effect, we estimate the local coefficient for focusing covariate. This idea is similar to the local regression. And this weight for local regression is defined as a probability that observation line is assigned to the same leaf at the random forest at the target value. So this method combines the DML process and also random forest weighting. Okay. So this is a result of estimation by DML at first. And in both result of Chiba City and Shizuoka City, the models incorporating network-based one eigenvectors show no statistical significance at the average treatment effect. And in particular, in Chiba City, the estimated effects are statistically significant and large in magnitude when spatial confounding is not considered. But so this means the results depend on whether spatial confounding is accounted for or not. So we don't have enough time. So and this is a result of ORF, and this is a result of Chiba City, and this is a result of Shizuoka. And for the result in Chiba City, when BAI was used as a treatment variable, the treatment effect was close to zero on the railway station here. However, the treatment effect increased with distance from railway stations and reached its maximum of about 3% at around the distance of 1,200 meters. And this result is similar to a previous study. And in contrast, for Shizuoka City, this is a regional city in Japan, and the estimate results was showed a large variation, and there's no clear trend of heterogeneity. So in Chiba City, a treatment effect was observed for each within the 1,005 meters of railway stations. And so this means improving bike sharing convenience is more effective in area where bike sharing is used as an access and egress mode to from railway stations like these areas. And it is important not only to place station density, but also to ensure the sufficient number of available bikes, because BAI have multiple factors of bike convenience. And comparing the results between the Chiba City and Shizuoka City, the results suggest that the impact of bike sharing system introduction on residential rental housing value may vary depending on the convenience of overall urban transportation network and the demand for bike sharing system, because Shizuoka City have less convenient public transport network and there is less number of bike sharing trips. So this is our conclusion of our study. Sorry, we don't have enough time. So yeah, that's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Actually, we have like 19 minutes, so you can explain that last slide.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. I think people can read it. Let's just go with the questions. So the first question is, how do the number of available bikes affects the result? So a small docking station versus a large docking station. You can see the questions in the chat directly as well.
How can I check the chat?
If you go to the chat box in the bottom, I don't know if you can see the.
So once I have to stop my sharing the screen.
Okay. Can you see it now?
Okay. Number.
So there are two questions. The first one, how did the number of available bikes affects the result?
Yes, thank you for the question. Actually, the treatment variable in this study have multiple factors of bike sharing convenience. such as number of available bikes and distance to bike-sharing stations and the number of bike-sharing stations. So it is difficult to identify which factors strongly affect the rental housing value. So maybe in order to identify the effect of only the number of available bikes, we need to introduce another treatment effect just considering only number of available bikes. So sorry, the answer is we cannot identify the impact of number of available bikes in this study.
But the number of available bikes is still part of the BAI index, right? So it is
Yeah,
considered. It just cannot be separated.
no separate, yeah.
Okay. And then the next question, to show the number of trips, the result of the number of trips, which software are you using?
Software. Result of number of trip. Which page?
If you can specify, Mr. Kim, if you can specify the slide you are referring to. Okay, so while we wait for that response, so originally you mentioned you showed the result for the BAI index on price, on land price, but most of the literature actually reported like distance, right? So distance to the bike station. So what about that? What does your result say about the bike station distance?
Uh, Actually, today I didn't present the result of analysis using treatment effect of distance, but in the Shizuoka city, there is no clear evidence if the distance to bike sharing station is set to a treatment variable. And also, there is no clear evidence for Chiba city. So this result suggests that it is important to consider the multiple factors of bike sharing convenience, such as the number of available bikes or the number of available stations. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so the question was referring to the figure represented in the results interpretation slides.
Okay. Okay. Let's share my screen. Okay, maybe this figure. Yeah, this is created by ArcGIS.
Okay, thank you. So another question. So are e-bikes or pedelecs or e-scooters also considered? So what are the mobility options you are considering here?
Yeah, we only consider e-bikes, and there's no e-scooters in both Chiba City and Shizuoka City.
Okay. Can you elaborate a little bit on the context of Japanese micromobility then?
Okay, sorry, there's an explanation in this presentation, but in Japan, the bike sharing system is the most major shared micromobility services, and e-scooter sharing is introduced only in the large cities such as Tokyo or Osaka. And yeah, in bike sharing systems, e-bike is the main bikes in bike sharing system, and I think there's less pedalic bikes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions? Now we have 15 minutes, so basically as we have planned, you can ask questions now to any of the presenters. So any of the 4 presentations out there. Okay, well, we'll wait for that. And I feel a little bit bad because I'm kind of a stakeholder in this one, but so what are the policy implications for this analysis, right? So we know that at least you show that essentially what we're saying is because you increase the viability of the first mile, last mile for people that are a little bit farther away from the station, then that increases the value, the rent value of the properties that are in that range. So from the policymaker's perspective, what do you do with that information?
Yeah, for policymakers, it is important to encourage the operator of bike-sharing systems to install a sufficient number of stations and vehicles around the areas with around the railway stations. But in addition, if the property values can be increased by introducing the convenient bike sharing systems, only landowner can receive the weight of impact. So the policymakers have to introduce the systems that can redistribute the impact on property values to society. But maybe this system is very, very difficult because in order to introduce such a system, the policymakers have to identify the accurate treatment effect by introduction of bike sharing system. But yeah, we need to discuss the complete system. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So final call. Are there any other questions for any of the presenters of this session? Okay, if there are not any other questions, then I would like to wrap it up here. Thank you very much for joining this session, and I think Anissa will give you the information regarding the next sessions that are happening in 10 minutes. So it's good. Now we can have a quick break, get coffee, etc., and I'll see you back at 2 p.m., at least in Japan time. Thank you very much.
You.
Environment, accessibility, and equity. Oh, thank you. The next session will be E5, Build Environment, Accessibility, and Equity. It's going to be shared by Dr. Makoto Chikaraishi from Hiroshima University. But in the meantime, let's just wait for a little bit. Thank you very much.
Presenters are already joining. The first presenter, Lenny, are you joined?
Lenny, are you?
Ah,
Okay. Yes, I'm joining. Yeah.
okay, great. And Ishani?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Chun-in?
Yep, I'm here.
Great. And Namurata Ghosh?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. And Suputi Roy? Sorry if my pronunciation is wrong. Roy? Not yet. Okay, and Sheikh Fardin. Sheikh? No, not joining yet. So probably last two presenters have not been joining yet. But yeah, let's see. Okay, so we will start from 2 in Japan, 3 p.m. Okay. Yeah, 3 p.m. Okay. So we still have 1 minute, so please wait a bit. So, Lenny, I think you can start to share your screen.
Okay. I will share screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, I can see. So in total, you have 20 minutes, okay? Including Q&A. Okay, so it's almost time. So can you start your presentation?
Wait. Wait. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Reni Desiana, a doctoral student in Institut Teknologi Bandung. Today, I would like to talk about why mobility matters in later life. Mobility is not simple about whether adults can travel. It is also about whether they can reach the place and opportunities they need to participate in everyday activities and maintain their independence and well-being. In this presentation, I will first explain why this issue matters. Then I will discuss what the literature reverse, how the mobility gap framework was developed, why transport context matters, and what this means for transport justice and future research. So let me begin with why the issue matters. Okay. Let me briefly walk you through the structure of the presentation. I will start with why aging, mobility, and transport inequality matters. Then I will show what the evidence tells us based on 128 empirical studies. From there, I will introduce the mobility gap framework and explain its structural components. I will then discuss what transport contents matters and how the mobility gap relates to transport justice. Finally, I will close with direction for future research and the main take-home message. So the overall journey is from evidence to framework to context and finally to implication. Population aging is increasing the needs for a transport system that are safe, accessible, and inclusive. But aging itself is not the whole story. Mobility is important because it allows other adults to do more than just a travel. It helps them reach everyday activities, stay independent, stay connected with others, and maintain their well-being. However, mobility is not determined by individual capability alone. Transport infrastructure, service availability, affordability, governance, and increasingly digital technology can either support mobility or create additional barriers. This leads to an important point. To order adult with a similar capability might have very different mobility opportunities, simple because they live in the different transport environment. So the issue is not only when the order adult, it is also what the transport system makes possible. Therefore, mobility and quality needs to be understood not only as individual issues, but also structural issues shaped by a transport system. And this is a question that motivated our review. How can this relationship be understood systematically from the existing evidence? Okay, to address this question, we use a three-phase approach. First, we conduct a systematic literature review to identify the empirical evidence. We start with 1,140, and after the screening process, we identify 128 empirical studies focused on order adult and transport. Second, bibliometric analysis using a force viewer help understand how the fear has developed, including its main research themes, thematic evolution, and geographical distribution. And third, we use thematic synthesis to identify recurring concept, relationship, and structural component across the empirical studies. The three phase serve a different purpose. The Systematical review tell us what evidence exists. The bibliometric analysis tell us how the research landscape in structure, and the thematic synthesis help us understand how the findings fit together. And together, the three phases provide the empirical base for developing the mobility gap framework. So what does the evidence actually tell us about mobility in later life? Across the 128 empirical study, one pattern was particularly clear. Mobility in later life is much more than a movement. It involves a leasing place and in opportunity, participating in everyday and social activity, maintaining independent and supporting well-being. But there is another important finding. Mobility is not determined by individual capability alone. The review repeat points to the interaction between individual capability, transport opportunity, digital technology, and the wider context. And this quite important distinction. Being capable of mobility does not necessarily mean that mobility will actually be realized. In other words, potential mobility is not always realized mobility. This mismatch is the starting point for the mobility gap. So the next question is what explains the mismatch? This is where the synthesis become more than a list of factors. The literature already tell us that individual capability matters. It also tell us transport opportunity matters. But happen with the two. This is the analytical space we focus on. The framework begins with individual capability, which shape on other potential to be mobile. The capability then interact with the transport system, including infrastructure, accessibility, service, governance, and digital environment. From the interaction, we conceptually mobility capability as the ability to turn individual capability and available opportunity into actual mobility. This turn influence realized mobility, including travel behavior, life space, mobility independence, and participation. When potential mobility cannot be translated into realized mobility because transport opportunity differ across a context, we conceptual this mismatch as the mobility maps. Importantly, we are not proposing a new standalone theory. Rather, the mobility gap is an integrative analytical concept that being established perspective together to explain mobility inequality. What this framework at shift in focus from individual limitation alone to how transport and environment condition shape the conversion of the capability into realized mobility. Okay, the framework can then be unpackaged into 5 structure components. First, individual capability, which form the foundation of mobility potential. Second, the word environment and accessibility, including walkability, connectivity, and universal design and proximity to everyday destination. And third, transport system and service, including availability, affordability, reliability, safety, and service integration. Fourth, technology and digital inclusion. Digital technology can create a new mobility opportunity, but limit access. Digital skills or affordability can also create new barriers. And finally, mobility outcomes and life space, including travel behavior, participation, independence, and well-being. But this 5 components should not be understood as 5 squares that's a box. What matters is how they interact. When these components work together and are equitably distributed, or the adult are better able to turn their capability and available opportunity into realized mobility. So the key point is not simple whether these 5 components are present, but how the interacts to shape mobility. And this interaction depends strongly on the transport context. Now let's look why transport context matters. The same structural components do not work exactly in the same way across the different transport system. To illustrate that, we use two analytical categories: high-yield connectivity transport and research constraint transport context. These are not a fixed geographical classification. The country examples shown are illustrated of the study included in our review. In higher connectivity context, the literature describes a condition such as integrated public transport, universal design and reliable service, and digital ticketing, and real-time information. In research constraints context, studies more often identify infrastructure gaps, limited service coverage, affordability constraints, digital divides, and reliance on informal transport. The point is not that one country is simply better than another. Rather, different transport systems provide different mobility opportunities and constraints. Consequently, older adults with similar capability might experience very different mobility outcome depending on the transport context in which they live. This is a contextual dimension of the mobility gap. So why does the mobility gap matter beyond transport? Because mobility is not an end in itself. Mobility enables older adults to access opportunity, participate in society, maintain independence, and support their well-being. When transport barriers prevent older adults from realizing their mobility, the consequence can extend beyond travel itself. They can affect social participation, health and well-being, independence and dignity, access to economic opportunity, and inclusion and equity. This is where we interpret the mobility gap not only as a transport problem, but also as an issue of transport justice. Transport justice as a broader equation. Do older adults have a fair access to mobility opportunity in the needs to participate less independently and maintain their well-being? So the issue is not simple whether transport is affordable. The issue is whether the transport system enable older adults to actually realize mobility. And if the gap is structured, the next question becomes how can we bridge it? If the mobility gap is shaped by multiple interaction conditions, then no single intervention is likely to close it. The review therefore points to need for a multi-level response. First, individual capability can be supported appropriate physical, cognitive, psychosocial, and digital support. Second, transport system needs to provide affordable, reliable, accessible, and integrated service. And third, the word environment short support safe, independent movement, workable, and inclusive space. Fourth, digital inclusion needs to be addressed as transport become increasingly dependent on digital information and service. And finally, governance matters because mobility enforces transport, urban planning, health, and social policy. The important point is that these are not five isolated interventions. They correspond to the interacting component identified in the framework. Therefore, reducing mobility inequality requires action across the system rather than focusing on the individual alone. Their strategy direction derived from the review evidence rather than a universal policy to inspection. Their implementation needs to reflect local transport context. Let me close with three main messages from the review. First, the mobility gap is structural, multidimensional, and context-dependent. Realized mobility emerges from the interaction between individual capability, transport opportunity, and sharing environment. Second, the gap, the consequence for beyond transport. It affect participation, well-being, independence, access to opportunity, and ultimately equity. Third, bridging the gap required integrated and context-sensitive action. No single intervention can address all the conditional that shape realize mobility. Coordinated action across the different structural component is therefore needed. Looking forward, future research should test the mobility gap framework across different cities and transport contexts, particularly by examining how accessibility, transport service, and digital inclusion shape realize mobility. So if I leave you one message, it is mobility in later life depends not only what are the adults capable of doing, but also in what their transport system make possible when capability or support and opportunities are accessible. Other adults are better able to move, participate, and live independently. Okay, thank you for much for your attention. I look forward to your question and discussion.
Yeah, thank you very much for your nice presentation, Reni-san. If you have any question, maybe I think you can just start to, just speak out. Yeah, and I think we got several questions on chat. Maybe can you see the chat?
Okay, yes, how is the mobility gap? Yes, from accessibility and mobility, yes. Okay. Wait, okay. Accessibility refers to the opportunity provided by transport and land use system to reach a destination and activities. Mobility capability focus on how individual capable interact to with those opportunities and transport condition to stage realize mobility. The mobility gap to on the other hand refers to the resulting inequality in the realized mobility and participation across different transport contexts. So accessibility described to opportunity, mobility capability connect to individual capacities with the opportunity and the mobility gap describe the disparities when the other adults actual realize yeah.
Now far, are you satisfied with the answer? Okay. I think you also got another question, which is about the social net. How can I say it? Not only public transit, but also like your friends or family members can provide some, give a ride or something like that. And that could also be very important in developing countries context. And did you get any insights on that from your literature review? I think your mic is muted. Denny?
Yes. Yes. Could you please repeat the question, please?
I think you can see the chat. You have two questions on the chat. And I think you answered to the second question, but to the first question you haven't, I guess. Did you find out the questions on the chat?
Okay. I'm so sorry. Okay. Yes, we found evidence this in the research constraint context. Adult often rely on family support and informal transport when formal transport service are limited. This is can support their mobility, but it can also affect their independence. However, our review did not directly compare welfare system. So I would be content about making a stronger claim about welfare provision. Like this.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, it's already time. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So now we would like to move to the second presentation. Second presenter, Ishani. Yeah,
Yes, hello.
great. So can you share your slide and start your presentation?
Give me 1 second. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, now I can see your screen. Yeah, please start
Yes,
your
hello
presentation.
everyone. I'm Ishan Shara from Queensland University of Technology in Australia. And today I'll be sharing some of my initial findings from my PhD study. And today we are talking about the Integrated Multimodal Travel Opportunity Measure, which we called as a matrix. So before starting, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where QUT stands and brief about myself. So I'm a second year PhD student and I'm a member of the Transport Econometric Research Group at QUT, which is led by Dr. Shams Yasmin. So my supervisory team is led by Dr. Shams Yasmin from QUT, and also I have Associate Professor Jeff from QUT, and from the industry, Dr. Shali is joining from the TMR. So I would like to mention that this project is part of ARC Beta Center, and also as the industry partner, Queensland Department of Transport and Main Roads is joining with this project. So today I'll be covering up these key main aspects in this presentation. Basically, the motivation and the gap, and the matrix tool, and the two-stage PCA approach, and the empirical results that we have initially found so far, and also the policy directions through ASI framing. So, as most of you are aware, in the Australian context, so it was recently came up that the news came up that 51% of the Australians are wedded with cars. That means they say that they cannot live without cars. But within this 51%, there are latent adopters who is actually would like to use public transport integrated with other travel modes. So in this context, so this is where the context of multimodal mobility comes into the scenario. So this came up with the Sustainable Development Goals as well, where the key focus is integrating public transport with the active travel modes. And when we talk about the Queensland Australian context, so here the government also has a vision and the strategic plan defined. It's not only the public transport and active travel modes. So the unimodal context is also defined in the multimodal travel opportunity ecosystem. So in this context, that is where we define the multimodal hierarchy. It's combining the public transport, active travel modes, and as well as the other unimodal modes and like cars and ride sharing as well. So the key focus for this research study is where we focus on travelers are constrained by inadequate multimodal travel opportunities. So here we look at the travel opportunity context based on the physical travel opportunity, which we adopt with the multimodal travel behavior mechanism. So giving a global context, so in globally, we can see that these multimodal trips are recorded as around 4 to 6%. And when we look at the Southeast Queensland context, so from the period from 2017 to 25, so it is recorded that the multimodal trips are around 4% when we combine the public transport with the active travel modes. But when we look at the in the other modes as well, so these numbers are increasing if we define this in the multimodal ecosystem like walking, cycling, and the shared taxi and Uber. So based on this condition, so the TMR has the vision and strategic plan for adopting multimodality in the Brisbane context. And also we are focusing with adopting multimodality in the upcoming Olympic and the Paralympic Games as well. And another key application of this study is integration as for developing someone to develop a digital innovation platform like mobility as a service platform. So this will be the key design basis to examine this multimodal travel behavior mechanism. So based on these aspects, so this PhD project is basically designed to examine this underlying decision mechanism of multimodality to understand this travel behavior mechanism under different levels. So based on that aspect, so today I'll be focusing on how we can adopt multimodality and how we can shift from this car dependency cycle towards multimodal supply cycle with adoption of increase in the physical travel opportunity context. So this will be as a key basic mechanism will be adopting at the strategic level demand model perspective. So in this PhD study, the basic outline, like the basic aspect is designing this analytical tool by examining this supply and demand mismatch. And here in this analytical tool, we are integrating the demand modeling, scenario testing, and scenario forecasting, and integrating with the policy outcomes. So this is the overall outline that we integrated in this PhD research study. So far we have identified the trip level focus by examining who are these multimodal travelers, and the current focus is on examining this in the area level context. That means what modes and where these multimodal trips are happening. So from the initial studies, we have identified that these are the key initial findings that we have identified that who are these multimodal travelers, so which age categories, and basically where this travel opportunity is high, so the multimodality increases in this context. So with this aspect, now the focus is on the area level perspective, and that to define this area level multimodality in the physical travel opportunity context. So here we define the matrix analytical tool. So as you can see, when defining the multimodal travel opportunity context, it's not easier. So it has all like different dependencies, and based on that, so we are defining this as a score to quantify this multimodal travel opportunity mechanism. So this is the basic idea to capture this supply and demand mismatch. So this will be integrated in this matrix analytical tool as well. So as the key basis for this analytical tool, so to like in this stage, we are focusing on the spatial level context. And for that, we are examining the unimodal and the multimodal travel modes to examine this physical travel opportunity. And this is the context that we are defining. So it's not only the one mode travel opportunity, so we are integrating unimodal as well as multimodal travel opportunity context when defining this partial level travel opportunity. So for that, we use the rule-based approach criteria integrated with the machine learning weighting. So for that, we use, I'll go through with the next slide. So for that, we use two-stage data-driven PCA approach. So that way, we reduce the dimensionality of the travel opportunity parameters, and then this lead to defining the final composite score. So this is where we define the score mechanism based on standardization and two-stage data-driven PCA pipeline. And this is the overall design approach that we integrated in this tool. So I'll discuss this in the further slides. So we are defining these through 3 dimensions and integrating with the two-stage PCA. We define the unimodal and the multimodal composite measures and integrating with the final score. So for that, this is the 2 layers that we are integrating with integration of the two-stage PCA approach, and for that we are using these 3 dimensions to integrate with the quantification of the travel opportunity index. So for that, we use the study context here in Australia. We have the Queensland, Southeast Queensland study area defined. And as the spatial unit, we are using statistical area level 2 as the scale for this integration. So for that, we use also the data window and integration of different databases using which represent transport network, land use and activity, and as well as the travel demand mechanism. So this is some insights where we integrate like different data focus are the modal flexibility, transport supply, and the land use structure. So by integration of these 3 mechanisms for each mode categories, so the final multimodal travel opportunity score is developed. So this is the mode category clustering that we have developed for this opportunity index development. So we have unimodal and the multimodal categories, and at the end this will be developed in the final multimodal ecosystem. So for that, as I have explained earlier, we are integrating modal flexibility measures, transport supply measures, and the land use measures to develop this multimodal travel opportunity measure in this multimodal ecosystem. And also we have used the statistical validation to validate the results. And these are the interpretation of the composite scores that we have generated for the unimodal and the multimodal categories. And I will show visually how this has spreaded in this study area context. So this is another representation of the composite measure that we have generated. And using the two-stage PCA approach, this is the final clustering that we have done for the final composite measure development. And also these are some of the statistical measures, so how the spread is distributed. And so based on this integration, this is the interface of the analytical tool that we are currently developing. So this is at the initial stage so far. So we have the study area defined, and also all the scores, like all the dimensions and all the score values have been integrated as a final outcomes from the PCA approach. And also we have developed the trip demand mechanism context, and then the supply and demand comparison, and then as a final measure we are integrating the policy insights from this. And also we have here the unimodal and the multimodal mode categories, and this can be generated based on the statistical area levels that we have defined in the study area. So this is the initial stages of developing this analytical tool. And here's a snapshot where this will lead to for what outcomes. So basically, from this tool, we are visualizing these to demonstrate where the supply and demand mismatch is, basically where the latent demand, this can be directed to where this latent demand is happening. So basically from this initial identification, we can identify visually where the supply and demand mismatch is basically high in which areas. So from that, we are linking this at the next stage for the mega events as well, and also as the policy outcome from this core mechanism and the supply and demand mismatch, we are defining this with integration of the avoid shift improve framing, so that we can identify which areas need which kind of policy mechanisms in terms of integration of multimodal travel adoption. So this is the key basis for defining these avoid shift and improve measures based on the supply and demand measures that we have generated. So these are like currently at the developing stage. So I'm not representing the final result at this moment. And as the final conclusion, so here we have what we have presented so far is the travel opportunity context that we have generated based on the modal flexibility, transport supply, and the land use structure dimensions for determining the travel opportunity context, which represent the transport supply mechanism in the multimodal ecosystem. And this has generated from also linking the household travel survey data, which represent the multimodal demand mechanism as well. And this further will be developed for the policy mechanism, and this currently are embedding with the avoid shift improvement framework that translate into the policy actions. So those are the initial summary of the findings so far. And thank you everyone for listening for my presentation. And if you are interested in knowing more about this research study, you can contact via this email. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for your nice presentation. Any question, comment from the participants? Can I just clarify one thing?
Yes.
So in the last part, you talk about avoid shift improve framework, right? So that, to me, it seems that you basically, you want to discuss like climate change related policies after developing this tool. Am I correct?
It's not related to climate change policies.
Okay,
So we are
okay.
integrating the sustainable policies for this.
Sustainable, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, sustainable policies, okay. And so who will be user of this tool? Do you have any stakeholders who will be using this tool in your mind?
Basically the outputs we are focusing with the policymakers. So in terms of like for different kind of policies, what they can test with different scenarios. So that will be the key focus that we are using this, because this is not the final outcome that we showed today. So these are the initial findings. So we'll be developing it further for different scenarios to run in this system.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. And any question, comment? We still have 2 to 3 minutes.
There is one in the chat.
Yeah, thank you very much. So there are many modeling tools, and what is the key contribution of your proposed system?
Yes, at this stage, we are identifying which areas have this latent demand. So which areas need to be improved based on the multimodal travel adoption, because otherwise, so if there is no any demand, and if we improve the policy actions for those areas, so that will be no use if there is no any demand in those areas. So specifically, currently we are looking at which areas has the latent demand for multimodality, and this will be further tested with different scenario analysis, like testing different policy level insights.
Okay. Johnson, are you okay with the answer? Probably okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. And any other question, comment? Okay. Okay, so if no more questions, no. You got another comment. So this is not possible with, yeah, so maybe using other tools, you cannot really achieve the same goal. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's your contribution.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. It's almost time. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so I would like to move to the next presenter, Chun-In. Can you hear me? Chun-In. Ah, yes, great.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Not yet, but it's coming. Ah, yes, now I can see.
Okay. Okay, great. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chen-Yin from Wuhan University. And today it's my pleasure to be here to share my recent studies titled Nonlinear Building Environment Impacts on Travel Behavior. And it is a review and also a meta-analysis. And this work is also conducted with my students Senqi Tian and Tao Tao. And let me start with the background. Improving the building environment is an important structure for promoting sustainable transportation. And in general, the building environment can affect how people travel. For example, like in the parallel neighborhood with low density, single land use, and the people tend to drive more. Instead, if you are living in the neighborhood with high density mixed land use, like higher walkability and distance to the city center and also the other destinations is kind of like high, like people tend to travel more by active modes. So actually, many studies have reviewed the impacts of the building environment on travel behavior. And for example, the studies from Susan Handy, Rudy Ewing, and Mark Stevens. And however, these studies, they do not have the consensus results. And like most of the studies, they review that based on the linear assumption. When we consider linear model, we assume that one unit increase in the building environment has similar impacts across the whole range. However, in reality, this may not be true because the impact may become weaker, stronger, or even change the direction after reaching a certain level, which we call the threshold. In this figure, we can see like the effects like from O to E is positive. However, from E to B is also positive. By linear model, we can only see the positive association. However, if we consider the nonlinear impact, we will see like from E to B, the effect size is much stronger than left from O to E. So the building environment actually may have the nonlinear effects on travel behavior, and whether the time geography theories or like the diminishing marginal effects and those response effects, they all confound like the effects from the X, what we say the building environment, to the travel behavior. They could have the nonlinear impacts. So in recent years, with the development of machine learning approach, many studies, they use the machine learning approach which can relax the linear assumption and to explore many nonlinear relationships between the building environment and travel behavior. For example, like studies use the gradient boosting decision trees, XGBoost, and random forest to capture the complex curve without assuming the linear relationship. However, in this literature, we do not have a very clear findings. For example, studies from twin cities, they find like even for the land use entropy, they find for driving, transit, and active travel, the same building environment element have different effects on different travel modes. And like in different cities, like the twin cities in studies in Shanghai, we find like still the same variable mixed land use, they have the different effects on active travel and also like the working behaviors. So we would say like the common nonlinear pattern across different travel modes remain clear, and the nonlinear pattern of the same travel mode vary across different contexts. Therefore, I like to answer a question like, do common patterns exist in the nonlinear effects of the building environment on travel behavior? To answer these questions, we conducted a Prisma systematic review, and we searched the six databases, including the PubMed, like Medland, and Web of Science, and something else. And also, we focus on the keywords by the building environment and the travel behavior, and also with linear and also nonlinearity and threshold and other similar keywords. And we searched the data until the end of 2025. And like the studies included in our review, the topic need to focus on the nonlinear relationships between the building environment and travel behavior. So all the linear models we have already removed. And also for the building environment variables, which is our independent variable, we use the 5D-based building environment measures, which including the density, diversity, design, and the destination accessibility and distance to transit based on the review from reviewing. And also the travel behavior is our dependent variables. We focus on the disaggregated travel behavior, which means like people's personal choice of personal travel behavior, including like the driving, transit, active travel. And for models, we focus because we focus on the nonlinear relationship. So the model should focus on the semi-parametric or like non-parametric models. And all the studies need to be the article type after the peer reviewed and published in English. Finally, we identified 48 articles, including 83 models in our review. And then the key method contribution of the studies, because like for the nonlinear patterns is quite diverse across studies. So from original figure, we extract the point data, then we use the same y-axis, then we normalize the x and y-axis, then we generate the average curve using the sample weights. Because like if the model has a large sample size, the effects may be more correct. So then we get the final results. Okay, and to generalize our findings, we focus on the literature issues. We have the 48 studies published by the end of 2025. And the first studies we identified was the studies from Ding published in 2018. And the study areas in these studies, most of them are from China, and 10 studies from the United States, and the other studies from Europe and Australia. And also the model types, most of studies use gradient boosting decision trees we call GBDT, and also XGBoost, and also the random forest and other models like JMM, like the general addictive mixed model. And for travel modes, most studies they focus on the active travel, and then driving, and only several studies focus on the transit. And then we will talk to the nonlinear patterns. First, for driving, we find like among the building environment dimensions, the density has the largest effect on driving, followed by the destination accessibility, then distance to transit, and the design, then last is the diversity. And like in terms of the nonlinear patterns and also the threshold for the density, we will see like in general it has a negative effects on driving. However, before 50% of the density threshold, its effect is larger than beyond 50% of the density. And similarly, like for the destination accessibility, like below 20%, the effect is stronger than beyond 20%. And however, for the distance to transit, like if we are living in far from the transit, like after like 85% people are it is effects to increase the driving tending to be rapidly than below 85%. And for the design and diversity, the pattern is kind of like complex with 2 or 3 thresholds. This is like a complex nonlinear pattern. And then similarly, we expand the nonlinear pattern for active travel. And the most important is the distance transit, then followed by the density and design diversity. However, the destination accessibility is kind of like not important because like for active travel people, usually the travel distance is kind of short. And also like for threshold, we will see like for example the distance to transit below 60%, its effect is quite planned. So which means like only when the distance is enough far, like people its effects on active travel will be negative. So which means like for different building environment variables, they do have the threshold. And also for transit, we will see the distance to transit. This variable is of course has the most important contribution. Then it will be the destination accessibility, density, and design, and last the diversity. And then we put all these figures together to identify the common threshold, and we find like for density, the common threshold is kind of like the 30%. Like below 30, like with the increase of density, people's the driving behavior tend to be lower, and active travel and transit tend to be higher. However, after this threshold, the effect is kind of like in reverse. And also the distance to transit, like beyond the 60%, the active travel and the transit is negatively associated with the distance to transit, and also instead the driving is positively associated with this variable. And however, for diversity and design, we do not find a very clear common patterns. And also the destination accessibility is kind of like the 50% is the threshold. So let's start this. We will highlight the contribution is like we reviewed the nonlinear impacts of the building environment on disaggregated travel behavior. We proposed a curve aggregation method to compare the nonlinear results, and also we compare the effects of the different building environment factors, and also we identify the common threshold of the building environment across the different travel modes. And then for the main findings, we will say like the built environment, they do have the moderated effects, but not negligible. And also most of the built environment factors, they do have the nonlinear effects on behavior, and also some of them share the threshold. And because most of studies we reviewed are cross-sectional studies, so it's still very hard to identify the causality. And also most of studies, as I said, they are from China and the US. So we may need more studies from other countries and other cities to generalize our finding to confirm the threshold. And also the publication bias is a common issue in review studies. So last, we will say like for the final direction, we would like to improve the causality, and we may pay more attention to the context and the spatial difference. And also we may understand the nonlinear mechanism better. And this work has already published on Transportation Research Party and the work on the site. Thank you. Let's talk. Any question or comments?
Yeah, thank you very much for your great talk. You got a lot of questions, actually, comments on the chat.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Give
it would
me
be good
1 second to chat.
Yeah, so I think you can answer one by one.
Okay, the first one is from Delinira. Let
Yes.
me see. Oh, okay, wait. Let me share my screen again. Okay. Okay, now you can see, like, because different studies, they use a different the nonlinear pattern is from different range. For example, the density in China is quite high. For example, like 1,000 to 10,000. However, the density in the US is quite low. For example, it's like from 20 to 500. So we try to mix the studies together. However, the unit and the scale is quite different. Therefore, we normalize the x and y axis. So, like in China, like from 100 to 1,000, we 1,000 to 10,000, we use the percentage, like from 0% to 100%. Similarly, like for that percent in the US city, for example, the Twin Cities, like the 20 to 100, the 20 may be like the 1%, the 20, the max, the highest density will be 100%. So like, therefore, in our studies, we combine this, we use the percentage. Then therefore, like the percentage in different cities, they may transportable.
Yeah. Okay, so that means you normalize for each country.
Yeah.
Okay.
For each study. For each study,
okay, got it.
Yeah. The second
okay.
Oh yeah, the
second one is
yeah.
I think you already answered to the second question, so you can move to the next.
The next one, yeah. Oh yeah, the Giancarlos. Sorry, I'm not sure my pronunciation is right. And like for the nonlinearity, what I said is like we do not have any assumption for the relationship. For example, if we use the piecewise or the functional forms, actually we assume the x and y has followed by the function, whether like the square items or like other patterns. However, actually, we have no idea about if they have if the real relationship is followed by that pattern. For example, like here we will see that for these nonlinear patterns, it's quite different and it's pretty hard to have a pre-assumption to confirm, okay, the built environment is affecting child behavior followed by that function. So in these studies, we do not consider those studies based on the functional forms or like the piecewise regression. Also, the piecewise regression, because the threshold is kind of like not based on the scientific method to confirm. Maybe they use like the Q1, Q2, but like still, we are not sure it will be the real threshold. And the second question is like, oh yeah, the regional difference. Just what I said before, like we consider that because based on the normalized method, but it is also very important. Like if in the future we may explore the effects region by region, then we may have more interesting findings.
But related to that, you can maybe jump to the last question from
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that means 20% means different things. I would say that, for example, for density, that means the same 20, like the 20% of the density in China and in the US are different, but they still like the 20% for that threshold. Yeah, I think I have already answered all the questions. Yeah, if you still have more questions, you can email me or like yeah, you can email me. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, because of the time, I want to finish the presentation. Yeah, thank you very much again for your great work. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll move to the next presentation. Namrata Ghosh. Are you joining?
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So can you share your screen?
Is my screen visible?
Yeah, I can see, but can you make it full screen? Yes, now perfect. Yeah, please start your presentation.
Okay. Yeah. Hi everyone. I am Namrata. I am a PhD student at Queensland University of Technology, and my research is focusing on transport equity, gender travel behavior, and sustainable mobility transitions. But today I will be presenting a part of the findings of a project that I have worked as an intern during my PhD. And today's presentation will talk about how the operational pathways to reduce. Operational pathways to reduce transport disadvantage and support feasible modal shift. So before I begin my presentation, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to the elders past and present. This project is a collaborative effort between the Queensland University of Technology, Transport for New South Wales, and iMove. So this project actually started with a very simple questions that can we expect a modal shift before addressing the transport disadvantage? So when we talk about the transport disadvantage, this project really focuses on the regional, remote and very remote areas of Australia, and especially in the New South Wales context. So, as existing literature already says that in regional and remote areas, the barriers such as infrequent services, poor connectivity, affordability, long access distance can limit realistic transport choices. So, when the alternatives are unreliable and inconvenient and also requires much more travel time, then car dependence becomes a structural rather than simply a preference or a choice. So, before asking how to encourage a modal shift, we should first ask what needs to change to make a non car alternative genuinely viable. So, this is how the project began, and I've been discussing a few of the findings from this. So during the project, we found the missing link is that existing research gives us many of the individual pieces. We have many behavioral approaches to understand why people are constrained. We have customer journey approaches to show where those barriers are occurring. And then there is a system thinking approach, which helps us understand how those barriers interact and reinforce with each other. And there are operational planning that actually ask what can actually be changed. But the gap is that pieces are really connected in one pathway. So in our project, we are trying to bring them together to diagnose the barrier, to locate and understand it, and ultimately translate the understanding of how we can incorporate a short-term operational intervention in the regional areas. To address this missing link, we have developed an integrated framework because transport disadvantage in regional and outer metropolitan areas is not produced by a single barrier. It emerges through an interconnected behavior, service, spatial, and institutional constraints. And it is the same constraint that can reinforce car dependency. So we therefore begin with using the COMB framework, that is understanding the capability of why people are constrained, then the opportunity, whether it exists, and the motivation of the people. So then we goes to the customer journey to locate where those barriers occur across the trip, and system tinkering help us to understand how those barriers interact with each other in the system. And finally, with stakeholder co-design helps this from the diagnosis to the short-term behavior operational responses. So the key idea is that reducing transport disadvantage and enabling modal shift requires these elements to be understood together rather than in isolation. So to operationalize the framework, we have worked in 3 stages. First, we have done the literature review. That was the phase 1 of the project, which has been already completed. Today's finding will be part of phase 2, which talks about the workshop 1 and the workshop 2. That has in workshop 1, we have talked with the stakeholders, that is representation from the local government areas in the regional locations of New South Wales. And workshop 2 as well has the same participants from workshop 1, and they have helped us to map the barriers across customer journey, and also helps us to co-define what minimum equity conditions are. And then then we have analyzed the workshop data using a hybrid deductive and inductive thematic approach. Deductively, we coded the barriers, organizing the capability, opportunity, and motivation framework. And inductively, we retained the themes that emerged directly from the stakeholder discussion. So coming to the first thing that we learned about the regional area, the problem is multidimensional and structurally embedded, not simply a matter of willingness to change mode. So barriers emerged across all 3 dimensions. So 3 questions we ask is that, can people use the option? Does the system enable it? And is it perceived as viable? So capability constraint included safety, confidence, digital, and physical capacity, which are the major barriers that are identified. Opportunity constraints includes the infrastructure, service reliability, and complex interchanges, while motivation reflected perceived value, trust, and card dependency. So these constraints affected groups differently, including the women, older adults, people with disability, low income, or caring households. So building on that, we then used a causal loop analysis to understand how these barriers interact in the system. What emerged is that modal shift depends on changing multiple feedback processes together. We need to strengthen reinforcing the loops around service reliability, access to the essential services, and digital capability. And while simultaneously weakening constraints around affordability, safety and comfort, and physical accessibility. The key finding is that addressing one barrier in isolation is unlikely to make modal shift becomes more feasible. If it is feasible, only if their interconnected conditions improve together. So once we understood how these barriers interact, the next question was from the stakeholders that what does an acceptable baseline actually look like? So we argued in the discussions that transport disadvantage cannot be meaningfully assessed without first defining a minimum acceptable transport condition. So with stakeholders, we asked what communities should reasonably to be able to expect from each mode, not a perfect equality, but a minimum equity standard. So this produced mode specific, the top two priorities around access, safety, service availability, and affordability. This standards gives us more of a practical reference from identifying where the transport disadvantage exists and where the intervention is actually needed. So through the workshops, stakeholders first helped identify the barriers, understand how those barriers interact in the system, and also help us define what a minimum acceptable transport condition should look like. We then asked them, given that the diagnosis, what should we actually do? So stakeholders in the discussions co-designed and prioritized short-term interventions, which we organized into these 4 whole customer journey packages and link back to the feedback loops they intended to change. I will briefly take you through each packages in detail. So the intervention package that came out from the discussion addresses a very basic questions. Can I arrange and afford and complete a whole trip? The stakeholders emphasize affordability is not just about the fare itself. It also depends on being able to book the service, having confidence that return journey is covered. So the package combines fare and voucher support, alternative booking channels, shuttle access, and return assurance across the whole journey. So systematically, this is intended to weaken the affordability constraint while strengthening the booking capability and access to essential services. Now, with the intervention package 2, and the second package asks, can I reach, use, and return from the service safely and comfortably? Stakeholders identify safety as a whole journey issue, not simply something that happens while traveling. So this package combines safe route information, accessible and comfortable infrastructure, safer travel environment, and importantly, safe return options after the trip. Together, these interventions are intended to weaken both safety and comfort and physical accessibility constraints that can actually lead to avoidance and exclusion. Then we come to the third package. The third package focuses on confidence and support. So it asks, do I know what to do if the journey becomes difficult? So in this, the stakeholders prioritize clear information, wayfinding, and access to human support before and during the trip. together with assistance when connections fail. So the system effect is to strengthen the digital capability, strengthens the service reliability, and weaken the safety and the comfort constraint. And with the final package, it focuses on accessibility and continuous mobility. In this, it asks, can I complete the entire journey without the accessibility chain breaking? Stakeholder in this package emphasized on accessibility at only one stage is not enough. The journey can fail where the chain breaks. So the package should combine accessible booking, paths, vehicles, and return support. In this, systematically, this weakens the physical accessibility constraint, however, strengthen access to essential services, support service reliability. So coming back to the question I started with, can we expect modal shift before addressing the transport disadvantage? Our current findings suggest not realistically where viable alternatives are not even exist. So the key lesson still now is that transport disadvantage need to be diagnosed as an interconnected system, not as isolated barriers. First, we need to establish a minimum acceptable transport condition, strengthen the feedback processes that enable the non-car travel, and weaken the constraints that suppress it. So all the interventions need to work across the whole journey rather than a single point. So the message that we come up is very simple, that modal shifts become more feasible when transport disadvantage is reduced and sufficiently for people to have an alternative to exist. And in this process, it is very important that we need to diagnose the barrier using the COMB framework, understand the customer journey from start of the trip till the return, and understand that in a system, it is much more complicated to address the transport disadvantage, especially in the regional areas. And it cannot be done without understanding from the stakeholders that actually represents the society. So the participation co-design operation packages, which helps us to understand that isolated intervention and system level can help us become modal shift more feasible. Thank you very much. And if you have further question on this, you can always drop an email to me. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your great presentation. We still have 3 minutes, so if anybody has question, please raise your hand, or you can just directly speak out, or you can put in comments on the chat. So far, we don't have. Yeah. Thank you very much for your great presentation. I think it's very nice. But one question I have is sometimes one solution to one, one type of group of people can be a bad option for others, right?
Yes,
For example,
yes.
I recently learned that autism, people with autism have a difficulty to use public transit in the crowding. If so many people are using public transit.
Yes,
But this is good for children because a kind of like eyes on the street effects might be happening. So children can feel safer. So how we solve this kind of stuff? So did you discuss on such a stuff in your research group or with your stakeholders?
And that's that is a very interesting question. So what happens in right now in the study context, especially, we're really focusing on regional, remote, and very remote, where such services opportunity doesn't exist. Say they are missing essential trips. They are not even able to go to universities. Educational trips, cannot take job that is far because there is no train or the bus service. So right now, the project in the first phase that we are trying to focus in a very aggregate, broader level to understand what is a society needs, like what is the bus stop a bus stop should at least have in a 1,000-meter distance in the regional area to have people even have that service. So the service availability and accessibility. Coming back to your question regarding people with disability, definitely this is one of the biggest problem, especially when it is in the regional areas, because none of the services that in the regional areas are wheelchair accessible, neither they can do anything. So yeah, that's an interesting point, and we have discussed, but we are still not at the first level to achieve that. So we are still working on achieving, let the services come, and then we will come that how to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think you also got some questions, or I mean, I think good suggestions
Yeah.
from our audience. And
So
we do not have much time, but if you
Okay.
want to add, you can give short answer now. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, the first question and the second question, cooling down areas may need to add customer journey to address concern. So to the first, to make drivers and passengers switch to cycling and scooting for short distances. So we are here talking in terms of regional areas where distance between like even with the grocery and the residential area is 2 to 3 kilometers, and the cycling infrastructure in the regional areas at present doesn't exist in the remote and regional areas. So first we need to work on bringing those infrastructure, bringing what is the least the community needs. And that is the first thing, that we need to reduce the transport disadvantage to motivate people to switch from cycling to cycling, first to give the infrastructure to the people. That's how we can motivate people to at least give them the option to shift. And perhaps pause. Do we have time for the second? Or should I will just type it in the message, the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's helpful. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your great talk. Thank you. Okay, so let's move to the next presentation. Sputiloy, are you joining? I cannot find the presenter on the participant list. No.
Anissa, can you check if the presenter uploaded their video to the public drive?
Saptiroy.
Yeah. We can move on to the next presenter. In the meantime, we can swap them, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Sheikh Fardin. Sheikh, sorry, maybe my pronunciation is not correct, but the last presenter is joining.
Hello, sir. I'm the second author, Anika Dasni.
Okay. So will you present?
Yes. I will present.
Great. Yeah.
So is my screen shared and am I audible?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I can see your slide as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so hi there, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here at the BTR 8th program. Imagine you are waking up at the morning and knowing that getting into the university or your work will cost much travel, much money, or more time than necessary, or it will simply feel unsafe. If this is a daily problem, then at some point you may no longer question yourself that how can I make my travel better? Rather, maybe the question will be, should I shift to somewhere else? This is the core idea of our study, that transport poverty as a spatial key to unlocking home relocation tendency. I'm Anika Tasnim, and on behalf of my authors from Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology, I will take you to the journey of transport poverty and how it become more than a daily inconvenience. So many developing cities are now experiencing rapid urbanization, which is compelling people to move for better home. So many literature has already revealed that it is maybe for better job, better facility or amenity, or better accessibility. But there is still something hidden that's still triggering people to relocate their home. And that is where our study begins to move beyond the usual explanation. So to put this pieces together, we are going to see through the lens of transport poverty, which was previously framed by Lucas in 2012. Transport poverty is a combination of total 4 dimensions, that is mobility poverty, where people do not have a good way to move around; affordability poverty, where travel cost seems much higher; accessibility poverty, where transportation structures are failing to connect the places we need to go; and lastly, the exposure to transport externalities, where people are continuously facing travel-related hassles like safety-related problems or negative impacts or pollutions during their daily commuting. If a person is affected by any of these 4 dimensions, is experiencing transport poverty. So to build up the framework, we have total 3 questions in our hand. First, does transport poverty push people to relocate their home? Additionally, how impactful are the personal factors and neighborhood setups in a heterogeneous developing city? And lastly, most importantly, do these feelings of transport poverty and the urge to move are correlated in specific parts of the city? This is the methodological overview. We have first collected our data, and then we check the survey quality. Then we have run a partial least square structural equation modeling. This is not enough, so we have also tested 32 outside factors, that is related to personal attributes or land use data or household characteristics. We have then shifted from statistics to spatial analysis. We have plotted the maps and ran the Moran's eye to prove that it's spatially connected to each other. So to collect the data, we have ran straight to the street of the Dhaka, which is the city of Bangladesh. So after doing a 2-week pilot survey, our main survey was ran from mid-February to mid-March 2025. We have collected total 1,240 data, but after screening, it was about 981. The survey was in-person interview to ensure the reliability. To make the survey comfortable to everyone, the survey was translated into both English and Bengali, which is mother tongue of our country. The survey age was 16 and above, so that we can capture all the voices of every range. So this is the Likert scale summary of transport poverty, where we have asked if someone has to spend more time, more money on their daily commute, if they feel stressed about the possibility of accidents, if they feel unsafe to their regular modes, if they find it difficult to plan or because of their physical state, if they need to split it into multiple parts, and overall if they find their trip planning exhausting. Then the residential relocation tendency. We have asked if they're unhappy with their current location, if they have, they will relocate if they have enough savings, or if their salary increases or their family member salary increases, or will they relocate for the convenience of family members? And lastly, if they're willing to change job for a similar salary to live closer to the residence. So this is the model result of our confirmatory factor analysis. We have checked composite reliability, Cronbach alpha, and average variation extraction, where composite reliability value is greater than 0.7. It is commonly used in the transport literature. And AV values are also greater than 0.5, which confirms the convergent validity. Then we ran to the structural equation modeling, which is a statistical tool that gives us the idea that is there any hidden relationship between the transport poverty and the residential relocation tendency. Before running the structural equation modeling, we have checked if the all factor loadings are greater than 0.7 for the transport poverty and same for the residential relocation tendency. We have found that there's a strong positive significant relationship between these two latent factors. This means, in simple terms, travel-related hassles increases the resident relocation tendency. We have further checked the R-square value. It was 78.7%, which means how much our model can adapt with the variations of migration tendency. So this only just proving this ACM is not enough for us. We need to further check whether is there something outside factors that is strengthening or weakening this relationship. So we have tested total 32 moderating factors. First, gender, we didn't find it statistically significant, neither the age. Interestingly, family income was acting as a buffer effect in this relationship. Higher family income has much more ability to adapt with the transportation related problems. They are still suffering from transportation related problem, but they have much income to adapt with this. This gives us an idea that travel related hassles are not necessarily making the same amount of impact for migration pressure for every household. So then we checked the current educational level. It was not statistically significant, neither the marital status, employment status, private vehicle ownership, motorbike ownership, those they're living with family or not, they're living in apartment or hostel. Are they in their own apartment or it's mortgaged or it's rented? The amount of monthly rent and then household bedroom number and household living years. But the numbers of members reside in household is positively statistically significant. Larger households may need to provide more daily trips and their travel pattern is comparatively complex, which compels them to migrate. So thus the high number of family members have more tendency to relocate. Then number of employed members reside in household was not significant, neither the number of license holders. From here, the land use pattern, we have explored the land use patterns. We have used the GIS to explore the land use from the 800-meter radius of the home location. We have found that administrative area was not statistically significant, neither the agricultural area, commercial area, community facilities, education and research area, health facilities, industrial area, institutional area, mixed use area, open space, residential, and restricted area. But the transport and communication area become negative, weakening the relationship between these two. This is actually expected, which means that people, those who are suffering from transport-related problem, but have much more transportation zone outside their household, have a less tendency to migrate, which means this transport and communication areas can stabilize the neighborhoods. Vacant land and water body around the household was not statistically significant. We have then plotted these two maps. The red color map is the transport poverty and the blue color is the residential relocation tendency. If we compare these two maps side by side, we will see a visual pattern is emerging. Those areas that are suffering from high transport poverty have also more tendency to relocate. However, just visualizing these plots cannot give us the actual proof. So we then transfer it into the spatial analysis, and that is Moran's eye. So Moran's eye check if actions and feelings are grouped together or if they are just randomly scattered. We have used the queen contiguity in these things. For example, in a chessboard, just how like a queen acts. We have also declared the neighborhood just like that. It's the full borders. The queen are connected to the full borders and with the single corners. So after we get the neighborhood, we input it into the equation. We get the Moran's eye scores. and this is the result of our more on sci, we have seen that both directional relationship is statistically significant, which means it's not something like the plot is that individuals have desire or it's just coincidental. The transport poverty is triggering the home relocation is not only just statistically significant, rather it's spatially clustered together. So what's the key takeaways and policy implications for the city planners? Our studies suggest that city planners, by tracking this transport poverty and relocation tendency, city planners can make an idea that where people are going to migrate in near future. And just not only that, they can also identify whether transport-related problem is creating the migration pressure. So cities must modernize their transportation network instead, and we can also provide some travel needs affordable fare structure and first and last mile connection specifically to the larger households and lower income people because they are much more affected to transport poverty to residential relocation tendency. So we have successfully together the missing puzzle, that is the transport poverty. And policymakers can use this map to plan smart transit strategies and to keep the neighborhoods stable. So this is the reference list. And thank you for listening our story. If you have any question, you can ask me.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to Q&A session. Great, you get one question on the chat. So let me read. The question, the question is relocating to where? I think in your analysis, you only look at yes. I mean, relocate or not, but not the location itself. Yeah.
But actually it's a bit limitation of our study that we haven't checked the longitudinal effect still now, but we have a plan to do that to a new survey. That's if actually the people is moving from a higher transport poverty to low transport poverty locations. So then we can confirm the study even more successfully. This is a framework that a tendency we're showing through our spatial analysis and statistical analysis, but yet it's not proved when or how many of them will actually relocate.
Yeah, actually, the question has a bit more arguments.
Sure.
Yeah, I think you can open it up. I think that the point is that they are living there. I mean, it's a kind of optimum decision for them, right? Because if they relocate, then new places might be more expensive than the current places. So that's why they feel that the current place is not very much satisfied. But yet, if we include the cost, then that place might be the best so far for them.
Yeah, definitely. We are noting that. You have actually pointed out a good thing. That definitely it's that higher. Actually, to be honest, the study context in our country, I mean, the Dhaka city, it is more like congested and highly polluted across the overall city. I mean, it's a very heterogeneous city, but its network connections are almost similar. We have only 2 or 3 zones where people are, we can say people are rich or people are high income. They have private vehicle ownership or something like that. But definitely we should include it. We hope we will include it in the next part of our study.
Great.
Poverty changes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
that I pointed out.
Thank you very much. I also have a small question.
Sure.
In the survey, did you also, I mean, how can I say, ask, did you also collect data from rural urban migrants, or you only collect data from those who are living in Dhaka for a long time?
Who are living in Dhaka, and it was a random sampling. We have done this. We have total 53 thanas. We called it thana in our language. We have total 53 thanas, I mean small zones in our Dhaka city. We have weighted the amount of survey sampled we need from the population census. So we have weighted, we have collected the data through this way.
And so do you have so many like tentative migrants from rural area to Dhaka or not so much?
No, it's just
Okay.
random people that are living in Dhaka. We have then further
Okay.
checked their home location. If they are
Mhm.
not living in Dhaka, but somehow their data is in our survey, we have excluded their data to the
Okay.
GIS.
Mhm.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's almost time. Yeah, thank you very much for a nice presentation. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's see, we have the last presenter or not. Loy? Ah, we have video. Am I correct?
Yes, I will try to share her video.
Ah, great, please. We cannot hear the voice. I think you also have to share the sound.
Good morning. Welcome to our presentation. The topic of our presentation is modeling the influence of urban form, thermal behavior, and accessibility on travel behavior. I'm the co-author of this paper. The paper is basically for the Khulna City Corporation area. Now, heads up to the next slide. Now it is like why this study is important, because we can learn how uneven the urban form is, the mode choice, why the people choose different types of mode, and why the heat is growing at a constant rate, and the policy needs toward level improvement and the planning. Now it comes to the study design. I and my co-author surveyed almost 888 household area, and there are 39 ward across the KCC. The individual trip calculated was 4,426. Here is a descriptive pictures and a map of the individual, the ward level design that we made. Here we can see there are 4 maps, and the first one show the trip generation, second the land surface temperature, and then the NDVI or the vegetation index, and the last one is the build-up area slide. Two types of answer we got, that the build-up and the land surface temperature are highly correlated with each other, and also the NDVI and build-up.
Hi, Makoto. I don't know why. It's only 2 minutes.
Yeah, it seems to be not complete version, but yeah. Anyway. Okay, so I think no of us questions so far. Okay. Johnson, I think we can close
Yeah, I
the
think,
session.
yeah. This is the last one, right? So there is
Yes,
for
this is the
today.
last one.
Yeah, so just a housekeeping announcement. So tomorrow we're going to start at the same time. So 12 p.m. Australian time and then 11 a.m. Japanese and Korean time and the others. And then we're going to have Tessa Sanchez from Uber. She's going to be talking about the Uber efforts to electrify the fleet. Hopefully it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be a perspective from the industry, which usually we do not have very often. So please join us tomorrow. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. ありがとうございます。Thank you for joining the session.